And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. Griffin is here. I don't know if you see him or not because he's going to be away next week. So Grant's in here making sure he's sharp, good to go, to be hanging out with us next week. Trade deadline week. I think what we're going to do next week, too, it's also Olympic week. I believe what we're going to do is we're going to have Grant demonstrate all of the various Olympic sports. So Grant will do some like trampoline stuff for us, and then he'll show us how rifle works.
You got my hospital bill?
No, it's just an example. It's just an exhibition. You don't actually have to jump to the entire lengths. We're just gonna have you. What I want you to do is when someone wins a gold medal, like an American wins a gold medal, you're gonna attempt to recreate what they did in order to win that gold medal right here in the studio. So I'm really excited about this. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Probably get some practice in this week ahead of it. But our big Olympics coverage, of course, coming next. I was talking to, I don't want to say who it is. I was talking to the reporter from the Baltimore Sun who is tasked with covering the Olympics. I was like, oh, dude, you're going to Paris. He was like, no, I am not. I said, oh, that's where we are these days, huh? It used to be the Sun would send multiple reporters. Now I get it. The height of Michael Phelps, like it sort of commanded that type of coverage for a local athlete. Still, even if there was a Michael Phelps, I'm not sure. It's just that's the reality of the industry at this point. It's a bummer. It's a big bummer. But such is life, man. We all have televisions. We all have streaming somethings or others, so we'll all get on that way. And it might not even be worth watching Olympic basketball because Team USA doesn't really feel like winning. I mean, I guess they ultimately, in the end, they do, but jeez. All right, coming up on the program today, we got a busy day ahead. We're going to talk a lot of trade deadline in a few minutes. Bob Nightengale from USA Today will check in with us. Later on this morning, Chris Rose, of course, now with Jomboy, previously of MLB Network. I believe he's still with NFL Network, Chris Rose, but he's definitely with Jomboy now. Chris Rose, does he still do Battlebots, too?
He does.
I loved when I never watched it, but I always liked when Chris would come on to talk about Battlebots.
He got me excited for Battlebots. I mean,
Did he? It was never my thing, but I always liked it was like one of those things where, like, I think when I was younger, I would, like, looked at it like, that's cool. Then I said, yeah, but I've seen it. I'm good. Like, it's really cool in, like, theory to me more than it is in practicality. We'll talk some more baseball with Jeff Nelson, Catonsville's own. He's both a color analyst for the Marlins and the Yankees. I don't know how that works, but he's doing, like, games for both teams. Orioles start their series with the Marlins.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Jeter works for both teams. Pretty sure he's out with the Marlins.
But like he was.
I don't think he was working for the Yankees when he was working for the Marlins.
Well, yeah, but like obviously he was still associated with the Yankees.
So anyway, the moral of the story is that Jeff Nelson is going to join us to preview the series, which gets underway tonight. Probably talk a little bit more about the trade deadline. Could Tanner Scott, could a return be in the cards for the Baltimore Orioles? Would that make sense? I guess Jazz Chisholm is a hot name these days on the trade market. I don't think that's going to be the answer for the Birds, but for somebody maybe. I would say they're pitching, but my God, their pitching, first of all, is decimated by injury. Remember when I picked the Marlins to make the playoffs? Remember that? How many of their pitchers do we know were out at that point?
Sandy was already out, right?
Sandy definitely was out. Was Pablo Lopez...
Yeah, he was in Minnesota.
Who am I thinking
this
of?
year?
Yuri Perez.
Yeah, Yuri Perez. Yeah,
I
think he pitched like a week and a half, and then he got hurt.
He was not out at the point at which I made that prediction. And again,
Edward Cabrera's been terrible.
I didn't know that Luzardo was going to stay. Remember, at the time, we all wanted Jesus Luzardo in Baltimore. We were all hot and bothered about him, and we couldn't get him. They wanted Samuel Basallo for Jesus Luzardo. So, like, man, I was hot on. There was a time where I was like, yeah, trade Samuel Basallo for Jesus Luzardo. He's really good. That would have been quite silly. That would have been a...
Well, in Baltimore, he would have stayed healthy.
Maybe. Probably not. He wasn't good when he was healthy. He had a bad...
Yeah.
He was bad.
That's true. Well, he would have had...
He had a 5 ERA.
He would have had a ginormous left field behind him. He would have been okay.
That part is true, but is it home
Would have
runs?
changed everything.
He only gave up 9 home runs in 12 starts. It's not great, but it's not like the home runs singularly was the problem. He had a 1.25 whip, which isn't abysmal, but is certainly not trade Samuel Basallo for that guy. the way it goes. But Frankie Montas is going to be the answer, so we got that going for us, which is nice. Anyway, yeah, Jeff Nelson will join us. Also, Scott Pioli, former NFL GM, of course, part of one of the architects of the Patriots dynasty, and then went on to the Chiefs. He's going to be in town this weekend. The NFL is doing their kind of like, what do they call it? Back Together weekend? Is that what it is?
Training camp back together?
Training camp? I don't remember. So. We'll figure it out before we talk to Scott Pioli. I know that much. It's called, what is it called? It's called
Back Together Weekend.
Bitch. Thank you. Back Together Weekend is what it's called.
You can watch it on NFL Network and NFL Plus.
Very good. So we'll talk to Scott Pioli about the Ravens, who, again, did not have Lamar Jackson on the field yesterday. But, again, I don't care. Like, I know because nobody's
valuable reps.
Because no one's allowed to go on the road anymore. So all of, like, the local reporters are going to training camp. So, like, they're trying to make it seem like training camp matters because they're not. Like, we send 2 reporters to Miami. All the TV people, all the TV people that are left. I just saw that Rocco DeSangro is leaving Fox 45 on top of the fact that Viv just left Channel 13. Does anybody do sports on Channel 13 now? Did they hire someone or just sort of like...
How people call in?
Might be the end of it. I mean that. It just might be the end of the local TV sports anchor in the coming years. But whoever's in town...
Where's Rocco going?
I don't know. I think he got a job... Like, he might be onward and upward. He always seemed like kind of a hot shot. Like,
good for Rocco.
You know, he seems like a nice enough guy. I can't pretend like I know Rocco the way that I know, the people that are closer to my age in town. But he seemed like a nice enough fella, and he seemed to ingratiate himself well. And so I wish him well, man. But anyway, we all have to pretend like that what's happening at training camp matters. Because it's what's happening here, so everybody's covering it, despite the fact that we all know that nothing that's happening at training camp matters. It's like this agreement that we all have to pretend that it matters. I can't. I'm sorry. It does not matter that Lamar Jackson isn't there.
Well, unless he keeps missing practices.
If he's not there a month from now, it's a problem. Or if he shows back up, remember when Troy Smith got sick the year that they drafted Joe Flacco, and like he showed back up and he had lost like 40 pounds or something like that. I mean, it was awful. He was in the hospital. He nearly died. It was bad. If something like that is going on with Lamar Jackson, then like that becomes relevant. But I almost understand like John Harbaugh, who's not even in combative mode yet, like because they don't have an opponent. But I can understand John Harbaugh being like, dude, what if he's. Is there an update on Lamar Jackson? Well, as you saw, he's not at practice. So, do you want me to describe his bowel movements to you? Like, what are you looking for?
I'd take that.
Me, is there an update on Lamar Jackson? He's sick. When he's back, he'll be back.
How often is he visiting the bathroom? That's what I want to know.
My God. We're so bored. I do my regular hit in Kansas City, and I love Seren Petro. You guys know that's my friend. But, like, yesterday, every topic that Seren was bringing up with me, I swear to God, I'm just like, dude, do you really care? Like there's no... People, I couldn't pretend that we care in Baltimore about this topic.
Well, just remember...
He was asking me, and I get it. I love him. He's very good at what he does. Like, he understands that you're just supposed to pretend like these things matter. Like, he was asking about the John Harbaugh comments about Lamar Jackson. I'm like, Seren, really? We really doing this? Like, really? And then he asked me about, like, Lamar Jackson filing an injunction against Troy Aikman because Troy. I'm like, what? Really?
I got Lamar.
Don't care. My God, do I not care? But I love you. I do, and I understand it. You're probably better at this than I am because you pretend like these things matter, and I just can't. I cannot suffer through the notion that these things matter. Lamar Jackson missed the first 2 days of training camp. Oh no!
I mean, it was 3 years ago when as soon as training camp started. Baseball season ended. And
yes, once upon a time, this was all we had. It's not. We have something. Now, the Orioles didn't play last night.
It's nice to still
There's nothing to talk about from last night. Care about what?
Lamar not being at practice.
Why?
Because he wasn't there, and they need him.
They need him for what?
To get those, reps with Bateman and...
Here we are.
Everyone else that's new.
Is this what you're going to do? Is this the new bit that you think that you've worked out for this show?
Well, if the Orioles don't play, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So how many more days do the Orioles not play?
Oh, dude, tonight when we're on against the Orioles, I'm going to have to pretend like lots of things matter. Like when I've got to talk about things that are not the Orioles. And
they play for like 20 straight days, so we're good.
Yuck. Yeah, Orioles obviously off last night. The Yankees did win, unfortunately, to split a 4-game series with the Rays. So the Yankees get a half game back in the AL East. They are now 60-42. The Orioles are still a game and a half in front, 3 games up in the loss column, but obviously you have to win those games for those games to matter. I always like it when we say that, like it's some sort of like fait accompli that the team that has played fewer games is just going to win all of those games. Like they can.
In the Orioles case, yes.
Right, that's a great point. They can.
Doesn't help the Yankees.
It might matter. I don't know. But that's where the Orioles are going into the series against the Marlins. You'd like to think that a series against the Marlins is a good opportunity to make some hay. You got to go out and do it, and obviously part of the problem being we don't know. We know Albert Suarez is going tonight. The Marlins haven't officially announced their starter. I
have no idea. AJ Puck, maybe? I don't know. I'm like trying to guess. I have no idea what it is.
To be announced.
Yes, thank you. That's the same as having not officially announced it.
Might be better. Might be better than somebody else they named.
Different way of saying it. You've got that. Love you, buddy. Kyle Tyler is who Fangraphs seems to think it'll be. I don't know anything about Mr. Tyler.
Oh, Kai Ty.
Kyle Tyler.
Kyle Tyler.
Let me see if I can find something
like
out about
debut?
Kyle Tyler. FanDuel also thinks.
Oh, no, he's pitched. Okay.
That's the case.
He last pitched on July 4th.
The reporter from MLB.com thinks it's Kyle Tyler. So there's that.
In fact, he's been recalled,
He
yes.
pitched 16 innings for the Marlins earlier this season and had a 3.38 ERA. So
his best start was his last Major League start, July 4th against the Red Sox. 5 1/3, 2 earned runs.
All right.
3 hits, 3 walks.
So there's that.
That's a good line.
There's that. Kyle Tyler is who is allegedly pitching for the Miami Marlins this evening. They have not made it official, but it seems official enough at this point. And then, of course, we continue to wait the word on what the Orioles are going to do with their rotation. They could return Cade Povich. His 10 days are now up, so that would be an option. They suggested last week that might not be what they choose to do. I would, based on the fact that they didn't confirm it, you would almost assume that Corbin Burns starts tomorrow. To me, it's more of a question of who starts Thursday, and whether or not they go with Grayson Rodriguez on normal rest or they try to push that back too. It doesn't seem like they would feel any need to try to get Dean Kramer bumped up onto normal rest, so I would think that by, at the latest, Friday, Cade Povich would be back and would be making the start as the Orioles return home this weekend. So that would be my thought process there, but we got to see how that plays out. Nothing particularly fresh on the rumor mill. J.P. Morosi added that the Tigers have been scouting Norfolk. They have had scouts on hand in Norfolk. So for those of you that obviously want the Tarik Skubal rumors to be true, you might read into that and say, boy, that it's getting hot and heavy. It's getting serious between the Orioles and the Tigers. That could also just be them doing their due diligence. It might mean something. It might mean nothing. This is sort of we do these types of things all the time where we want something to mean something else, and it just doesn't. The Tigers are looking. They've sent a scout to look at Orioles prospects. Okay. By the way, if the Orioles were considering a reunion with Jack Flaherty, then they also might be looking at that. I get it. We always are going to overreact. And also some of these reporters, it's just, what can I add? What can I add to this? Well, I happen to know that the Tigers were looking. Okay, then that's what you got. That's what you know. Does it matter? Again, I can't tell you that it matters. But apparently that's what they're doing. So we'll see. I'm still torn. I'm still not. We'll talk to Chris. I know Chris Rose. That's part of the reason why we asked him to come on. Chris Rose was on his show last week, ready to trade Jackson Holliday for Tarik Skubal. I'm not saying no way, no how, no sir. I'll start a riot if that's the case. I have said that in a world in which no one's actually untouchable, in the reasonable world, I would put Jackson Holliday on the untouchable list because I don't think you can recoup value for the number one prospect in baseball. But if Tarik Skubal is healthy and is going to pitch for you for the next 2 seasons and this year, then That's really valuable, insanely valuable, because he's that good. But I'm torn. I'm not opposed. I'm not hell-bent against it. I'm just struggling with it. And as Steve Johnson said yesterday, I'm glad that I'm not the one making the decision. One, because I'm not qualified. I'm not sure what I am qualified for, but I know it's not that. And two, because it's going to be a hell of a decision. Like, there would be shockwaves sent through this fan base if that's the direction. I think they'd still largely be more positive. Like, if it was a Jackson Holliday, Tarik Skubal trade, and it'd still be Jackson Holliday probably plus something. But if that's the trade next Tuesday, if that's what they announce, then I still think that the fan base would be more excited than terrified. I think there would be pushback, but I still think there would be more of a giddy-up, let's go, like Tarik Skubal is an Oriole, let's go win the World Series, feeling to it immediately. But there would be measurement on the other side, and it wouldn't just be me. So we'll see. We'll talk more about it a little bit later on. As I mentioned, Chris Rose will join us, but J.P. Morosi reports that that the Tigers are scouting in person the Norfolk Tides to look at Orioles prospects. We will see where that goes. No new names that I saw added to the list of reported. As I was scouring yesterday, just a quick personal update. Yes, my son's still in the hospital. We're still working through it. We're still trying to get everything straightened out. Everything is still fine. I appreciate the kindness. That does mean a lot. But as every time I talk to somebody about it, there's like panic. It's not panic. Everything's okay. It just sucks. Just got a kid who's sick of being in the hospital, and we got to get his breathing right, get him off the oxygen in order for him to be able to go home. That's what it is. But I'm sick of being there. He's sick of being there. His mother's sick of being there. His brother's only been there a little bit, and he's sick of being there. Actually, I don't even know if that's true. His brother, every time we show up, like, his brother thinks it's free time to, like, watch movies. He's like, this doesn't suck. So, and like whenever his brother shows up, all the nurses are like bringing him stuff. Then when a 7-year-old shows up at a hospital, the nurses are like, "Oh, can we get you anything?" And he's like, "Hell yeah, this is service." And I'm like,
"This doesn't happen at home."
Nah. He's the only one that's not. Now he would prefer to have his brother home, but he doesn't mind the hospital part of it. He was in fact yesterday taking me on a tour of the hospital. He has. Because he gets antsy, so we're like, all right, dude, let's go for a walk or something. He has figured out. He knows people there now. Like, we're walking by yesterday, one of the lounges. He's like, oh, I got to go show you. There's another lounge. I'm like, all right, bud. So we go look at another lounge, and my 7-year-old's like, oh, this is Terry. And I'm like, hi, Terry. What the hell is going on here? Like, what is happening? The 7-year-old. He's in his element, man. He's making friends. But the rest of us, not. We're beyond done. We're beyond over it. Just totally and completely sick and tired of it. So I think I'm sleeping there tonight. I've been sleeping at home with the 7-year-old. I think maybe tonight I don't know. We'll figure all that out. But that's what's going on. So yesterday, after the show, I go and I spend the time at the hospital with the boy, and I'm sitting there like perusing. And it's almost like I've become a junkie. Like I'm just looking for anything that's give me something. Give me some. You got any? You got anything for me on trade rumors? You guys got anything trade rumors? Like walking down the hallways, like ducking in the room. You guys got any trade rumors in here? You guys anything on Andrew Abbott? Anything on Eric Fetty? You got it? You got any Eric Fetty? Any hot Mason Miller tips in there?
Joel Sherman from MLB Network shared it was his hypothetical trade was Jason Foley.
Yeah, that was a hypothetical. That wasn't a report.
Well, I know, but
it's not.
You wouldn't do it.
Foley, go ahead.
Foley and Skubal for Kjerstad and Holliday.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot. And Foley hasn't been.
He's been.
If Foley hasn't been so good this season that like you feel like that you want to trade more in order to get him. That feels more like, if they're gonna get Holliday and Kjerstad, then they've got to give up something else. Mm-hmm. For that price, it almost feels like it would have to be. Nobody wants to hear it.
Add in
clarity. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And that's the problem. Like if Jack Flaherty was named if the guy that was pitching for the Tigers this season was named anything else, if that was Joe Jameson, then we'd all be like, all right, cool, Joe Jameson. He's had a hell of a season. Because it's Jack Flaherty, we're just like, nah. No, thank you. No, thank you. Foley this season, he's only blown 3 saves. He's put over 34 and 2/3 innings. He's 34 hits, 13 walks. That's a 1.36 whip, 3.38 ERA. I'm not saying that you wouldn't take him, but you don't feel like you'd want to give up like a real piece in order to add Jason Foley into the deal. Jason Foley is someone you'd want to acquire for secondary prospects. Let's continue to talk about the trade deadline this morning. Joining us now, of course, baseball writer for USA Today. We will find out what he thinks the Baltimore Orioles perhaps could be doing. He is, of course, our friend Mr. Bob Nightengale, and he's back with us here on GCR. Bob, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Sure, my pleasure.
Bob, we are a week out from the deadline. Are you, given the number of names, the significance of the names that the Orioles have been talking to or talking about, or however you want to call it, are you convinced that they are swinging big at the trade deadline this year?
I'm not convinced of it, just because they always hate to give up, good prospects. And obviously, if you want a guy like Tarik Skubal, there's been great prospects. Crochet is going to be big-time prospects. So we'll see. I think you get Skubal. Now, I'm not sure about Crochet, just because I'm not sure how much he has left in the tank for this season. But certainly Skubal, this might be the AL Cy Young winner. That's really swinging for the fences. You get a guy like that, all of a sudden you may be World Series favorites.
Is it worth making the price starting? Let's say it starts at Jackson Holliday. Is it worth making that type of investment to trade that valuable of an asset for Tarik Skubal?
It may be. If you believe in your scouting and development, that hey, we can go find the next Holliday. Why not? Obviously, we have so many great young position players. They all can't fit up there. And you got the depth. Why not use it? So it'd be hard to do, obviously, particularly with all the hype and everything with Holliday and how good of a player he may become. But Skubal's the animal out there, and he's a difference maker. He's a guy you get to win a World Series, and the beauty of him is you got him for 2 more years after this, and they don't have starting pitching locked up.
I was reading, of course, just a moment ago at usatoday.com as your newest trade deadline piece was up, Bob, that you said it's still a long shot that Skubal will be traded. So I'll ask this twofold. Like, is it the type of scenario where, like, if it's not Jackson Holliday, then it's no way that it's going to happen? Like, is this, like, the Tigers are either getting something so significant they have no choice but to say yes, or they're not dealing him?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they're the fringe of the wild card race themselves. So it's not like they're out of it. And I just think it's a tough sell for the with the Tiger fans. Yeah, you better get a ton out of it. You better overpay. They certainly don't have to trade them, and I think it's foolish for them to even consider it. But you got to listen to see if someone offers you something crazy.
Is it possible that there's a way to do it without it being Jackson Holliday? Like, could the Orioles, Heston Kjerstad, Samuel Basallo, like, can there be a package that could land you Tarik Skubal that wouldn't involve Jackson Holliday?
I guess it's certainly possible, but then you're giving up 4 or 5 guys. I guess it depends what you think Jackson Holliday will be. I mean, do you think he's going to be a perennial all-star? Or a guy that's a very, very good player. So, that's the big question. And obviously they need a shortstop. Baez hasn't turned out. So, you could do it without a Holliday, but then you're probably offering, a huge package, of like 5 guys.
He is Bob Nightengale. He's with us from USA Today here on GCR. Bob, if the Orioles aren't willing to pay that price, or if the Tigers simply aren't willing to deal Tarik Skubal, you bring up Garrett Crochet. There's still this I can't shake the innings thing, that like the price that you would have to pay for him to not know with certainty that he'd be able to pitch for you going towards the World Series seems really difficult. What are the other names starting pitching-wise that to you would make the most sense for a team trying to fortify a World Series chance?
Well, you could actually, get Eric Fetty from the White Sox as well. He's available. Jamison Taillon from the Chicago Cubs. Guys like that. Gomber from the Colorado Rockies. So, a drop-off, but those guys are available. Certainly I don't think the Texas guys are going to be available now. They're just, 4 games out. Some of the guys from Tampa, Zach Eflin would make a lot of sense. So, kind of a drop-off in talent. So I think Crochet would be available. You're not starting him in the playoffs, so I wouldn't think. But can always be your late-in guy or closer in the meantime.
Is it worth paying the price necessary to get that? You know what I mean? Like that's the part that I'm struggling about. Because I know exactly what you're saying, but it feels like you're going to have to pay nearly a Tarik Skubal price to pay all of that and not have it be a starter specifically for a team like the Orioles, where they have 2 starting pitchers that we trust at the moment going towards the playoffs. You'd still have to you'd have to be paying a lot to get Crochet and the starters that you need. It just feels like that math doesn't math to me in making it work for the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean the key too is just, how much does he have left? Do you give him a contract extension? Say, you know what, we want you to keep on pitching. There's an injury risk. It's on us. Where he probably take an injury risk. If you give him an extension. It's a little bit like the Josh Hader situation. When Hader says, "I'm not going more than 1 inning for you because I'm risking my arm." So same thing here. Remember now, this kid's not making any money. He's only making $800,000, and that's one of the reasons why he's so attractive as well.
Where are you with the Mason Miller conversation? It feels like, at the beginning of the season, I had kind of put it aside and said that the price is just going to be too high, knowing Mike Elias and this Yale-educated group of Pythagorean believers. There's just no way the Orioles would pay that price. It seems like there's almost momentum towards the idea that, there's no reason for the Athletics to hold on to Mason Miller. They're going to be playing in a AAA stadium for the next couple of years, and his value is just going to be going down. What do you think they do with Mason Miller, and what do you think the cost is for albeit a really good one, but still a closer?
Yeah, I mean, I still think you'd have to get way overpaid. We were talking about like a Skubal type thing, something wild like that. Same thing, not making money. You got him for 5 more years, elite closer. But hey, when these guys are throwing that hard every single pitch, what usually happens is Tommy John surgery at some point. So I don't know how long he's going to stay healthy. There's also talk about moving him back in rotation one day, which maybe Orioles would consider too. But the thing about, with Miller is since he's got 5 more years of control, the A's can say, we'll hang on to him now and see what people offer all winter or next off season, next trade deadline, something like that. But yeah, right. It doesn't make sense to hold on to him, but there's certainly no rush to move him.
Yeah, that's tough for me, and it still just feels like I just would be surprised. It seems like the Orioles are in the closer market, or at least in the high leverage, back end of the bullpen arm market, whether or not that's somebody to replace Craig Kimbrel or just another arm to have, because you've got to limit how many innings Kimbrel throws. We know that Tanner Scott, the former Oriole, still highly thought of, still out there. Is there anyone else to you that would qualify as someone that would replace Craig Kimbrel? Or if you get past Miller and Scott, are we to a place where you'd just be adding another arm and Kimbrel would still be your closer?
Yeah, I mean, Tanner Scott would be a good one too. And, say the Red Sox keep slipping here after the break and have a bad week, they'd probably make Kenley Jansen available. I think they got to get another late inning reliever just because Kimbrel hasn't done it. I mean, when the Red Sox, won the World Series. They didn't use him as a closer. Dodgers had him off the playoff roster. We saw what happened last year in Philadelphia. So I think it's almost imperative they get some late inning reliever, just in case things don't work well in October, which they haven't in the last 5-6 years here for Kimbrel.
No question, and I think that everybody here is feeling the same thing. Which isn't to say he can't be part of the solution, but for him to be the singular guy feels like you're asking for trouble trying to win a World Series. Bob, I don't know if this is something you've even spent any time with, so I'm going to ask it to you broadly. I feel like when I go on other radio stations around the country and people ask me about the Orioles at the deadline, I inevitably get to a place where I say I still don't know yet what the plan is from David Rubenstein as far as spending is concerned. So when we say, hey, is it worth it to trade Jackson Holliday for Tarik Skubal because he's got these extra 2 years of control, and you feel like that's the way that you're replacing Corbin Burns. Well, like, for example, I don't know yet if David Rubenstein is willing to spend the money to try to be in the Corbin Burns market at the end of the year. Do you have any sense around baseball? Like, we all believed when David Rubenstein took over, he's in his mid-70s. You would think that, like, he's got all this money to spend, but yet he's played it very close to the vest. Have you gotten any sense of his willingness to spend to try to get the Orioles over the top in the next few years?
I mean, you think he would spend just because, the history when new owners come in, they want to spend to getting good graces with the fan base. This is an unusual situation where usually a new owner comes in, you're taking a franchise that's kind of downtrodden and hasn't done anything. This one's on the rise, kind of the envy of everybody with all the young talent they have at such a low payroll. So you would think he would spend, but I've talked to agents too and say, what do you think? You think he's going to start to spend big in free agency? And nobody really knows. Certainly nobody had said yes, absolutely, but it's pretty much just he hasn't tipped his hand. But I would think, there might be probably enough public pressure, like, wait a minute now, you got this window right here, take advantage. I mean, the World Series is right there for the taking for the Orioles.
Do you have a sense of what Corbin Burns might cost for, like, what the market might look like for Corbin Burns at the end of the year?
I mean, it should be huge. It's not like this year's a fluke. He's been doing it.
Right.
And the thing about him, it's one thing to do it in Milwaukee with a weak NL Central, but to do it in the AL East and to be that good, the best division in baseball. So he'd be the number one prize out there. Pitching wise, there's not that much pitching out there. I mean, you do have Max Frieds and that sort of thing, but it's got to be over $200 million.
Bob, before we let you go, anything that could still be like a significant surprise between now and next Tuesday? Someone we're not talking about that, like, it could just jump up given what a team maybe does over the course of the next few games?
There's going to be somebody. Someone's going to say, it's such a seller's market. People are paying, crazy prices. When you look at the Harvey, when he went from Washington to KC, no one could believe how much KC gave up, for a reliever like that. So I think we may see someone say, we'll go ahead and trade someone, whether it's whether it's a Bellinger, whether it's one of the studs from Texas, we'll see. But I think all these teams are listening because the price tag is so high. So we got a chance to be surprised by a few things, or surprised it could be a dull trade deadline, because you have about everybody in the race except for about 5 teams.
Yeah, they're all in it. It's going to end up being like Eric Fetty. That's going to be the list of players dealt by the time we get to next week. At B Nightengale, of course, is how you follow him on Twitter. And as always, usatoday.com is where you can see his stuff. Bob Nightengale, truly appreciate you. Thanks. I know it's a busy week. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. Take care.
Bob Nightengale with us here on GCR. I know it's worth pointing out that, like, I put out there, are you convinced, given the veracity of all of the names the Orioles have been linked to, are you convinced that they are heavy hitters? And the answer is no. So I do think that matters. It doesn't mean they can't be. It just means that the evidence isn't overwhelming to the point that, like, obviously they're going to be, grabbing the big fish they can or doing the proverbial all-in thing at the deadline, which maybe can't be stunning when you remember, of course, that the window isn't closing for the Orioles by any stretch of the imagination. It's a very complicated discussion, man. It is. Everybody is in agreement that the Orioles need pitching. Everyone. But to what extent, how badly they need pitching, almost every single one of these guys you can talk yourself into, with the exception for me of Crochet. I can't talk myself into Crochet. I can't do it. That's the one that I can say, nah. What it would cost to acquire him, I can revisit that in the offseason when I'm looking for a Corbin Burnes replacement. If that's what you get to. If you get to a place where Corbin Burnes is gone and you're looking for a replacement, then I can visit the Garrett Crochet conversation then. Figure out how many innings he was able to pitch this season, how close he is to being able to put together a full season as a starter. And let's be fair, there's probably a little bit of like let's make sure this really is who Garrett Crochet is that you need to go through next year. I still don't know. Like, that to me, the cost seems like it's not reasonable with what you're actually getting. I can't get in on Garrett Crochet. Like, if somehow the cost, like, tanked, then okay, fine. But that's nonsense. The price for Skubal is going to be unbelievable, but so is Tarik Skubal. So I can at least make that make sense. Trepidatious, but I can make it make sense. The lesser cost for these lesser guys, I can make that make sense. The Miller thing, I can't even dismiss. I don't think the Orioles will do it. I still don't think. Even if the Athletics were asking for, 10 out of 10 in return for Mason Miller and got to a place where nobody was offering a 10 out of 10 and said, hey, 7.5 out of 10 ain't too bad. And as we keep saying, there's no reason to hold on to Mason Miller. We're not winning anything. All we're doing is letting his value depreciate over the next couple of years while we're not going to win a World Series. We're not even going to try to because we're playing in a AAA. It would be nonsense for the Athletics to try to win a World Series in the next 3 years. They can't profit off of it. They don't have a market. It really is kind of badass that they couldn't just find like like the Vegas minor league stadium, try to work out a deal to play there. I guess an outdoor stadium. How do they play baseball in Vegas in the summer? Like, that's God.
Well, it's going to be dome-dish, right?
No, their stadium, but the AAA stadium.
Oh, the AAA. Oh. Yeah, I don't know.
My thought was...
Well, Sacramento's going to be held, too.
No, Sacramento's not like Vegas, dude. You have no idea what you're talking about. Vegas is...
Well, the way Kevin Brown was talking about it.
I'm not saying that Sacramento... There's things that are going to be unpleasant about the Sacramento thing, but the weather in Vegas is monstrous in the summer. Is pure hell. Like, you would not have an outdoor stadium in Phoenix in the summer because it's a desert. They play in an outdoor stadium in Vegas, but they do it. They play minor league baseball there. I mean, I assume the easy thing is like they never play an afternoon. I can't imagine they play. I guess maybe on Sundays they have to. But my God, like, how do you play an afternoon game in Vegas in the summer?
Jeez. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. You're right.
Yeah, I know.
The sun just came up and it's 95.
It's hell, dude. I remember the first time, like the first night I lived in Phoenix, walking down the street and looking up at and this was at like 11:30 at night because we had gone out for drinks, and I look up at the bank, and the bank has like a thermometer outside, and like the bank thermometer says 107 degrees.
Jesus.
At night. And I said, well, that can't be right. Like, that can't. There's no way that's.
How does anyone live there?
I mean, it's nice for somebody. It's nice they don't have to shovel anything.
I mean, yeah.
As they say,
well, neither do we really.
Some winters we do. Some winters we're shoveling.
Not recently.
Not recently. You're right about that.
Vegas got a high of 109 today.
I'm surprised it's only 109.
111 on Thursday.
How about I saw numbers when I lived in the desert that had a 2 as the second number. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that was just heat index. Maybe that wasn't the temperature, but like, yo.
Then every now and then you'll get a wind, right? What's the difference?
Why are they not playing in the minor league stadium? I guess I know the answer is like you just can't play in an outdoor stadium in Vegas for the entire summer. But I'm still surprised that like punting the next 3 years. But it's part of the equation here. If you're punting the next 3 years, because you're certainly not going to invest money to play in a minor league baseball stadium and no real market. So you're punting, which is why there's no reason to punt and also not trade Mason Miller because his value is not going to go up in the coming years. He's just going to be closer to free agency at that point. So even if it's well, take whatever you can get, I still think that cost is probably too high for the Orioles specifically. Just knowing the way that Mike Elias and his team look at player values, I would be stunned if they're willing to pay that price. Could be wrong, but I'd be stunned. That said, they got to get somebody. Maybe it's Tanner Scott. We'll ask more about that with Jeff Nelson just in a minute as we're going to preview Orioles-Marlins. Today's show brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. As we mentioned, things are about to get underway in Paris. Events start tomorrow. When everybody tells you that they start on Friday with the opening ceremonies, the actual sports start tomorrow. And the best place to watch every event is inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Giant media wall over 100 foot, great food and drink specials, just steps away from the FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, Live Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details, livecasinohotel.com. Jeff Nelson previews Orioles-Marlins next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Hey Birdland, enjoy a Friday night out at Camden Yards on July 26th and watch the Orioles take on the San Diego Padres at 7:05. Come to the game early. The first 20,000 fans 21 and over will receive a City Connect reversible floppy hat presented by Coors Light. This season's floppy hat features a reversible design with the City Connect B for Baltimore on one side and the vibrant, colorful pattern on the other. Don't miss out on this fan favorite giveaway. Buy your tickets today at Orioles.com/tickets.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8, with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCRs to continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. John in Little Rock was joking that maybe the Vegas team plays their games at midnight. I actually, just out of interest, went and checked. It's the Las Vegas Aviators is the team. Who are they an affiliate of? Are they the... You know, it's really funny. I don't know. Is it the A's?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Look at that. How about it? It is the A's. So as I'm reading into it, you know, the popular thing now in baseball is everybody moved their games up to like 6:30 or 6:40 or something like that. Not Vegas. They kept their games right at 7:05. Said no chance. But I can't even imagine what it feels like at 7:05 in Vegas playing baseball. Unpleasant. All right, Orioles will be down in Miami playing baseball for 3 games starting tonight. Albert Suarez on the mound for the first one. Let's talk a little bit more about the Marlins, perhaps one bullpen arm that could be a trade candidate for the Birds. This man, part of the Marlins broadcast crew. He's also, of course, part of the Yankees broadcast crew. We saw him on Roku for the Orioles-Yankees game a couple Sundays ago with Ben McDonald. That was a lot of fun. He is the pride of Catonsville. The great Jeff Nelson is with us now here on GCR. Jeff, it's Glenn back in Baltimore. It's been too long, man. Thank you, as always, taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Dude, first of all, you and Ben McDonald talking about the brawls. Like, I made Griffin, we always put a picture up on our video presentation. I made him find a brawl picture to put up with you today. Like, I could listen to you guys talking about that for, 12 hours if you're willing to do an elongated podcast. When you said, like, dude, we got to go get ready, I know exactly what's about to happen here, was one of my favorite things that I have heard on television all year this year.
I got a little fired up when they had their little, I won't call it a meeting. I'm not going to even say it was a brawl because all they're doing was yelling at each other.
Right.
I played on Friday, but you get a little conflicted. I grew up in Baltimore, an Oriole fan, and I played with the Yankees, and I work with the Yankees. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to root for the Yankees on this one. But now that they're down here in Miami, even though I work for Miami, I think I'm going to root for the Orioles.
What do you make, by the way, before we get into that, because I want to talk Marlins with you, but what do you make of all of the back and forth between the Orioles and Yankees this season, none of which has ever seemed, to me, like there's been intent? It's just seemed like, guys kind of yelling for the sake of yelling. I know Yankees fans are like, oh, the Orioles are dirty, and then Orioles fans are like, hey, have you guys checked the hit-by-pitch numbers? Like, you guys have hit way more batters, like wildly more batters than we have. What do you make of all of that? Is it just sort of much ado about nothing, or are we going to be dealing with it for the rest of the season?
No, you only play 3 more games at the end of the year. I think good news. I like the fact that this happens only because you don't see teams throw inside. It's just a lost art, whether it's the umpires taking the inside pitch away, hitters are afraid to, or pitchers are afraid to hit hitters. And then you look at Aaron Judge and how big he is. and pitchers are afraid to throw inside. And if you don't throw inside in this guy, he's going to have your lunch. I mean, this guy's a really good player.
Right.
And if you don't throw up and in, and you're not going to have success against them. And, you know, when we played the inside pitch, nobody likes to get thrown inside and nobody likes to get hit, but it was more accepting back then because we had to go in there. I thought the hitters I still think the hitters were better, you know, even though there are some really good hitters out there. The Orioles have a lot of them. I like when pitchers go inside. You need to come inside to establish that inside part of the plate and just to intimidate hitters. They don't do it anymore. So I actually like the little game they have going with the Orioles and the Yankees. They're two great teams in baseball that are going to compete for the Eastern Division. And the Eastern Division, you know, you add Boston in there, don't sleep on them. It's a really good division, and I think it's important for one of these teams to win it, to get that bye going into the playoffs.
Last Yankees won. Why aren't they more consistent, Jeff? Like, you just look at a team that has Judge and Soto in the middle of the lineup, and you feel like that should be unbeatable. And yet, you know, they've been bad, right, for like the last month of the season. It's not just they've been downright bad. Like, why are they not more consistent, and why have they not been able to live up to the highest end of their roster?
Yeah, you know, a lot of it, you know, they've been bad probably for the last 6 or 7 weeks besides the Orioles series. And even when the Orioles won that last game, right, that it was just such a great game. You know, it even felt that the Yankees lost the series. I thought that was such an important game for the Yankees to get, you know, go into the break a game up. And instead the Orioles wound up winning that one, coming back, and couple defensive plays. You just said two guys, and that's all you have in this lineup right now. Right. You need more consistency from other players in this lineup. It's not like the Orioles lineup when you look at 1 through 9 that can hurt you, and you're getting consistency pretty much. If you look at everything that they've done offensively, OPS and OBP and slug, they're at the top. I mean, 1-2 in baseball, pretty much in every offensive category. And the Yankees are only there because of 2 players, and that's Soto and Judge. And if you don't have consistency past them, then you're going to pitch around those guys, and you're just going to take your chances with everyone else. Just like the Orioles did, how many times they walked Judge. They said, okay, somebody behind Judge is going to have to beat us in order for them to win. And that's the way teams are going to treat the Yankees going forward.
He is Jeff Nelson. He's with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Jeff, let's talk about the Marlins, who the Orioles will see for a few games. Last week during the off week, like an idiot, we decided to look back on our preseason predictions, and the dumbest person alive, Glenn Clark, picked the Miami Marlins to be a playoff team this year. So I didn't feel great about that. We know the pitching injuries stand out the most, right? Like, that's probably the biggest story.
Yeah.
But are there other significant stories in why the Marlins have crashed so far this season?
Well, one of them, I think he got fooled a little bit about the National League, thinking that the Marlins, especially last year, the Marlins snuck into the playoffs. I mean, it took them, the last couple of days or the last day, and they made it. For one, the National League was down. You know, you had the Braves and the Dodgers and the Phillies, and everybody else was mediocre. And the teams that snuck in there, even though Arizona went to the World Series, you know, they got hot at the right time. Everybody else was mediocre, and it's just a matter, okay, who was going to do it between the Reds, the Cubs, and I think maybe a couple other teams were in there. And the Marlins wound up sneaking in there, and they had the better head-to-head as well. So you got fooled a little bit, but the pitching injuries have been a major part of it, but their offense has really struggled. They're a team that's very aggressive early. They're not a very patient team. They're last in Major League Baseball in walks. They're not a very smart base running team. Their bullpen actually has been really good over the last, I'd say, month and a half. So you'd hope to score early, because the back end of their guys, like Tanner Scott, used to be a former Oriole, A.J. Puck from the left side. Those guys have been pretty dominant back there at the back end. But as a team, it's just not a really good team. It's frustrating because they have a great manager in Skip Schumacher. They have a great coaching staff. But as far as player-wise, they're really struggling to find some consistency and find guys to come up to the big league level and produce.
So, by the way, as I was preparing to talk about the Marlins this week, I went to like the stats page, and I was looking at ESPN, and they have like they separate who are the team leaders and everything, and they had Jazz Chisholm as the team leading hitter at 249, and I thought that can't be right. There's no way that there is no one on this team that's hitting better than 249. I said, oh boy, now I get it. Like I completely understand how bad things have been. You bring up Tanner Scott. Obviously, that's a name that's interesting. The Orioles have been connected to him again in trade talks. Let me pose it this way, Jeff. You saw, you pointed out that game before the All-Star break. Craig Kimbrell, brutal, right? Gives up a couple of walks and the home run to Ben Rice. And he's been good at times. He's been really good at times in Baltimore, but he's been quite suspect at other times in Baltimore. Right. And his recent history, late in seasons, has been really bad. If you can trade for Tanner Scott, can you confidently say Craig Kimbrell's now just a leverage arm and this is your closer definitively moving forward?
I don't know. I don't know if you take Kimbrell out of that slot still. I think even I think Tanner Scott, I've only saw him a little bit when he was with the Orioles. I think now he's a different pitcher. I think he's a much more confident pitcher. I think going into a place where he's already familiar with, I think he's the type of person that I would say, hey, you know what, I want to show the Orioles and the Baltimore fans that, I am a different pitcher, and this is the way that I've been pitching in Miami. I can pitch in Baltimore. I think if you needed to use him as a closer, you probably could. As far as him going into other places, Miami's a very easy place to pitch, even though you're pitching in the ninth inning and it's still a high leverage situation. You're not winning anything really. You're winning the game. You're pitching for yourself. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. But it's an easy place to pitch for him to go into a place like maybe New York or say Boston or another high leverage city. Even though Baltimore is, I just think him coming from that organization before, I think it would be a good fit. I think he's got a great arm. I think he can be an impact arm. He's got swing and miss, and that's what bullpens need. They need guys that can strike out players and hitters, and he's that guy.
I feel like what you're talking about, we talk about a lot, which is the idea of the pressure and how it gets to you. And even in a city that's maybe not quite as rabid as those cities that you brought up, if you're making a run towards winning a World Series, there's going to be a ton of that. But that's an interesting perspective that you have, that just like the familiarity might go a long way into sort of easing that pressure here, unlike in other places.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if he goes somewhere else, it's a little bit different because I know everybody knows each other or pretty much knows each other around the league. Just going to a familiar place. I mean, he's familiar with Baltimore. He's been in that organization. He's a pitcher that didn't have a lot of success there, but at the same time, I think he's a different guy. I think he's a different pitcher. Even though he does have the tendency to walk guys, he hasn't done that in a while. And, even in one-run games over the last few outings, he's been pretty dominant. And that's been the time where he's struggled in the one-run games, but that hasn't been the case over the last, I would say, 15, 16, 18 outings.
I was going to say, last year pitched to a 0.99 whip. This year, a 1.01 whip. I know the walks have been a little bit elevated this year, and it's actually the hits that have come down. But what is it? Like, what has clicked? Because we all knew that the ability to throw the baseball was there. Like, we saw the velocity here in Baltimore. What has clicked that has allowed him to be so good over the last couple of seasons in Miami?
Well, one, throwing strikes. He's throwing strikes a little bit more consistently this year. Another is that in the past, if he was wild in the zone with his fastball, he kept trying to find it with his fastball. Now he has such confidence in throwing his slider for strikes and also expanding the zone with it. On occasion, he almost has more confidence throwing his slider for strike than he does his fastball. And you can see it when he's out there. If he's all over the place and he's up in the zone with his fastball, he'll just throw his slider for strikes. And that's a wipeout pitch. So he's not been, I don't want to say hard-headed, but, I need to find my fastball, and I'm going to keep throwing it until I throw it for a strike. Well, now he's kind of dialing it back a little bit, say, you know what, I have such great confidence in my slider. that I can throw that for strike at any time. And I think that's been a difference maker for him.
Jeff, before I let you go, I assume, there was a lot of talk about Jesus Luzardo until the injury. I know he's getting close to maybe being able to return. I would think that if he's getting close, there could still be value there, but he did not get off to a good start this season. Like, what do we make of where Jesus Luzardo is when he returns? Is it still worth paying a, maybe not overwhelmingly significant, certainly not a Tarik Skubal price, but a serious price to try to acquire Jesus Luzardo at this point?
I think he's a guy that has a terrific arm. It would be interesting to see if they trade him while he's on the IL.
Right.
I think he's got a great arm. To me, sometimes I think he gets too complacent with, okay, I can go 5 innings and I'm happy with that. Now, before he went on the IL, it was interesting because him and Ryan Weathers, all of a sudden, you saw their velocity drop just a little bit. And a lot of it was, hey, I want to throw strikes and I want to try to go deep into the game instead of try to strike a lot of guys out. And when they started doing that and realizing, hey, I could pitch instead of throw, he actually got a little bit better, and he started going a little bit deeper in the game, and he can prove to himself that he can go 6 and 7 innings and still be as dominant throwing 95 instead of trying to, throw 97 and 98. I think he is a very quality pitcher, and maybe if he gets with the right team and he gets that competitive nature, and he's in a pennant race. Maybe something will click with him and he'll say, hey, I want to try to help this team win and I want to go to the playoffs. He does have good stuff. It's just a matter of him believing in it and believing that he can get deep in the game because he does have dominant stuff from the left side. But that would be interesting to see if they trade him off the IL.
It's one of those tough things where, like, if he's going to be back soon, maybe there is some value there. I guess it's unlike Tanner Scott, who they're trading. The Marlins don't have to trade him, and they would presumably want his value to be back up before they look to – I don't know. It will be right. It'll be interesting to see over the course of
I don't think he's coming back. I don't know if he started to throw.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he's started to throw yet. I don't see him back until maybe mid-August, end of August at most.
Okay, but that doesn't mean he couldn't help somebody in a pennant race.
No. Oh, exactly.
That's...
I mean, you got teams that are staying right in there, and all of a sudden, hey, if we can get him at the end of August and have him for the last month or so, then it's not his arm; it was his back. So right. It wasn't like an arm issue.
Jeff Nelson, it's on Twitter. It's at NYNelly43 is how you follow him. Jeff, is there anything else you have going on that we can plug for you, man?
No, as long as the Orioles don't take the Marlins for lightly, it should be a sweep.
Oh, boy, you say that. You say the Orioles still have to throw Albert Suarez tonight, and we'll see if Kate Povich starts this week. Let's not go crazy yet with anything like that. Jeff, and
what is it, 7 more days to the deadline to try to add?
Jeff, you know what the other weird thing, too, is that, like, oddly, they've been really bad against the National League this year. They got swept by the Cubs. They got swept by the Cardinals. Like, they did take 2 out of 3
Well,
from the
they're
Phillies.
two different teams. They're two different teams. As long as they don't go in here and start getting relaxed and all of a sudden get taken by surprise by the Marlins, they should be okay.
Jeff, you've always been great to us. We love you back here. You know that, despite the fact that we associate with you with the Yankees. You're like the one Yankee. You and Singleton are like the only Yankees we'll ever truly have any affection for in this city. Appreciate you, brother.
Good.
Thanks for taking the time for us this
morning.
morning.
My pleasure. All right.
Jeff Nelson with us here on GCR, of course, longtime reliever, and the man that was involved in both brawls. And that was him and Ben talking about it on the Roku broadcast was joy. Like, I could sit back and if that was a podcast, your pal would listen to every moment of it. Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. I assume that, like, Luzardo won't get traded just simply because teams will be looking to try to get him cheaper because of the injury, and the Marlins will say, well, the injury and the fact that he wasn't good this season, they'll say, yeah, we'll trade for Luzardo, but we're not. Remember, at the beginning of the year, it was Basayo that they were looking for. Now teams will say, yeah, we'll trade for Luzardo, but we'll trade you our trash for Luzardo, and the Marlins will say, we don't need to trade. The Marlins have to trade Tanner Scott. He's a pending free agent, right? That's the deal. They have to trade him. Whatever they can get for Tanner Scott, he's getting dealt next Tuesday, period. period with a T like the kids. Do the kids still say that? They just say brat now. I'm trying to figure out brat.
I don't know.
Grant, what's brat?
I don't know any of that.
Grant, you're supposed to know what brat is. I don't know.
Did you call him Greg?
No, I said Grant.
He said Grant.
It sounded like Greg.
I don't know what brat is either.
The brat thing.
I haven't heard period T in a little bit. So
yeah, I think
I
that might
know.
be dead. I think that might be what the
I never
kids said
heard that
5
one
years.
either.
Oh, that was a big one 5-6 years ago. I think the kids might be out of period to. But the brat thing is all over the internet the last couple of days. And it might have something to do with Charlie XCX.
Correct, it is.
And I'm just not. I don't know what it is, and I'm not gonna know what it is, and it's just.
I don't care.
I am at the age where this is never.
It's a distinctive fashion style, carefree.
And I definitely don't care.
Bold.
Hang on a second.
Bold mindset.
Well, okay, take it back.
No bold mindset.
Carefree
And resonates. Well, no, hold on. You might pull you back in. Resonates with the party girl aesthetic.
I'm not.
That's not you?
I don't think I'm going to fit in with the party girl aesthetic. What is the party girl aesthetic anymore? Because I feel
Charlie
like
XCX.
But I feel like the young girls now just wear like sweatpants, and they just.
If that's part of a bold mindset, I guess.
I guess like during the summer they wear very short shorts, like I don't know, dude. I'm out. I'm sorry. This is not the topic for me. There's lots of topics that could be for me. This one will not be.
So Tanner Scott brat, yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what you were saying, right?
I don't think
You
so.
said Tanner Scott's can be traded period T.
And then
brat.
Yeah, somehow it became brat. I don't know if Tanner Scott's brat or not. I don't know who's brat besides Charlie XCX.
And
I don't know. I got to be honest with you. You could line 100 people up. You could line 5 people up and ask me which one of them was Charlie XCX. And
you'd guess.
I bet you could guess. That's a
guess.
blind spot for me, dog. Like I know Billie Eilish, I know Olivia Rodrigo, I don't know Charlie XCX. Just not. I think I know one of her songs. Did she do Oh God, now I don't know if I know one of her songs. What was the? Why do I feel like I know what Charlie XCX is?
Everyone's saying Kamala Harris is brat. Apparently,
I feel like that's how this came up this week, is that they were using it for Kamala Harris. But doesn't she just wear like Hillary Clinton pantsuits all the time?
That's mostly what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, she wears a sports jacket.
So how is she brat? How is that? If brat is party girl?
Oh, you should know
Are the party girls wearing?
She had a song on the Barbie album.
Pantsuits. Charlie XCX.
Yeah.
So was it
Speed
the popular
Drive.
one? I don't think that was the popular.
It was a
one.
popular one.
What was her big? She had a big hit at one point. What was her biggest hit?
Was her biggest hit official?
God, why? Who are
I
the
don't
young
know.
people that I have?
I don't know. I don't know Charlie. I don't know Charlie
you?
XCX
But what
that
do
well
you
either.
know?
I mean, apparently nothing.
What? No. What? Dude? What's your area?
Oh.
Boom clap. That's the song I was trying to think.
Oh,
of. Boom
okay.
clap, the sound of my heart.
Yeah.
On and on and on and on. Yeah. Boom. I
Oh,
know
she'll be
that.
at the
That
arena.
one I know. Yeah, that's a big song.
She'll be at the arena in September.
But I couldn't name one other Charlie X. First of all, I couldn't name that song. I needed the internet to remind me that was the song. I realized, but I'm looking at the other names: Boys, Fancy, Vroom Vroom. I don't know any of these songs. Couldn't tell you any single
Fancy.
one of them.
Yeah, she wasn't.
That's not
Fancy.
Iggy Azalea.
Yeah,
I know that.
yeah.
I know that. I'm so fan. Maybe she was.
I loved Fancy.
Maybe she did a feature on it. Possibly. I don't know.
Did a remix or something? Yeah, maybe she was. I don't know.
I
don't know.
That she was on that song. That's the.
Oh,
Fancy.
okay.
But it's not her song. It's Iggy Azalea's song that she did a feature on.
Yeah, Speed Drive's the only thing
We're
of
getting
recent.
We're getting to the bottom of the important stuff over here on GCR, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting to the
Like
bottom
where
of it.
Brat came from.
Yeah, like I'm gonna let you know where Brat came from because Tanner Scott is
Brat.
Hang on, will that help his trade value or hurt his trade value if Tanner Scott is Brat? Because if it lowers
don't
it,
ask me.
then we should start a Tanner Scott is Brat campaign so that it would cost the Orioles less.
Maybe
to
if
acquire
it
Tanner
confused,
Scott.
we could confuse the Marlins. Maybe like if they don't know.
They're like, do we want Brat?
We don't want Brat, do we?
Well, no, they can't have. That's the. They have to. By the way, we're going to chat with Chris Rose at the end of the show because we're about to run out of time. I just looked at the clock.
Yeah.
Chris Rose will join us at the end of the program. It's fine. It might allow me a minute.
I'll
to
see if
get
he can do
out
that.
of Yeah, check in with him. We pre-recorded Chris Rose. You're gonna know. You're gonna notice because you're gonna see a video of me in a very dark hospital parking lot.
We got to get you a light.
Yeah, I got to. If I'm gonna keep doing. Actually, I found out later, thanks to my son, there were all these lounge areas that I could have gone to. But I decided not to do the interview in the hospital room because there's all these noises and nurses and doctors coming in and out. I was like, I'll go out to the car and do it there. And then I tried turning on the overhead lights in the car. And
made it worse, probably.
It was a nightmare. It made it look awful. And I didn't have any time at that point. I had like 3 minutes before we had to talk to Chris Rose. And I was like, well, I guess this is what we're dealing with. That's the way that it's going to go.
Chris Rose looked great, though.
Oh, he looked money. That's the same thing that he looked like on MLB Network. And then there's my dumbass in a dark car. Like, I swear to God. And, thank God Chris Rose has been on with us a lot over the years. Because
otherwise this would have been the last time.
There is no doubt that he would have said, what podunk podcast am I on with? What group of two guys in their basement am I doing an interview with right now? If Chris Rose didn't know us and hadn't been on with me a number of times over the year, and thankfully, I was able to talk to Chris for a little while afterwards and explain the circumstances, explain the situation, and he's like, dude, I want to come on with you more often. He wants to come on during football season. He wants to talk S because, Chris is a big Cleveland guy. He's a Browns fan. He's a Guardians fan. I've always liked Chris. We've always gotten along. He's a good guy, despite the fact that he was a legitimate star in the business. He's always been a gem to the rest of us in this industry, including those of us that don't know how to light an interview because we're sitting in our car in a dark parking garage like a dummy. By the way, even worse, because at one point my 7-year-old, so when I got to the hospital before, the 7-year-old's at camp this week. So his grandmother picked him up from camp and dropped him off at the hospital, and they parked elsewhere in the parking garage. He saw I was sitting in the car in the parking garage and came over and started rapping on the window. I don't think you can tell in the interview.
I'll be paying attention.
I definitely started looking over, and I was definitely shook for a second. Like, what? Like, is somebody telling me I'm not allowed to do interviews in their parking garage? Is that what's going on? Anyway, did we get to the bottom of Brett? Did we?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Charlie
that's what it means.
Tanner Scott and Kamala Harris.
Yes.
That's who's
the
Brat.
origin.
Good.
That's the order of Brat.
In 2024,
Charlie XCX, Tanner Scott, and Kamala Harris. Congratulations to Tanner Scott on being Brat. I hope if he comes into the game,
if it means he's an Oriole in
this is the really
9 days, then
really difficult part about the not
days?
9 days, it's
7 days.
1 week from today is the trade deadline. Remember, it's normally the 31st. Why is it the 30th this year? What's the deal on that?
I don't know, Grant.
There's a reason why it is. I just don't remember what the reason is why it's on the 30th and not the 31st this year. But it will be the tricky part about tonight. Like tonight, he comes into a 3-2 game. Obviously, you're rooting for the Orioles to touch him up. But then if he gets touched up, are you going to want to trade for him afterwards?
Orioles good team, so
I hear you, but you're going to be facing good teams if you're trying to win a World Series. It's quite the catch-22. You just hope that you're not in that spot. You hope Tanner Scott doesn't pitch at all this week. Or they bring him in the top of the ninth while they're trailing by 1 run, and maybe he pitches really well, and that fortifies your interest and belief in Tanner Scott being what the Orioles are looking for as far as a leverage guy for the back end of their bullpen. But it will be a catch-22. Do you have something to add?
I'm trying to figure out, prior to the most recent CBA, the trade deadline almost always fell on the 31st at 4 p.m.
I believe there would, if it was a Sunday, they tried to move it off of.
Okay, so then it would be August 2nd or whatever.
I believe in the last couple of years that it's been they've tried to avoid it being on the weekend, the trade deadline.
That sounds right.
I don't think they like the image of players being informed that they're being traded during games.
Mid-game.
So they wanted to make sure that the trade deadline
I like that image.
was not on a day where there were afternoon games.
That's what it says here. It says Commissioner's office can now set the deadline for in between July 28th, August 3rd to avoid conflicting with games. So that's
so they just pick.
But the weird part about that is that it's a Wednesday. Why can't you just tell teams, dude, we're not playing, afternoon games on a Wednesday?
I guess because it's still a getaway day for some
that,
teams.
But the Orioles played a getaway game in Tampa at night after they played an afternoon game on Sunday.
Well, Major League Baseball's still trying to figure everything else. It's not a perfect.
Even if it's a getaway day, you're playing at night. It's a Wednesday. It's not that big of a deal to play on Wednesday night. I don't understand why.
Oh, you know what's cool? Wait. So, never mind. Okay, I was looking at the wrong day. There is a day game on July 30th.
What?
The Guardians and Tigers play at 1:00.
Of course.
Nobody else plays until 6:30.
What in the ever-loving F is going on?
I guess let's hope Skubal's not starting that day.
Was this a rain out? No, it was a Tuesday game. It had to have been scheduled.
Oh, God.
Could you? Clearly, if he's... I guess if he's scheduled to pitch and they let him pitch, it's their way of saying he's not getting dealt. If they're going to deal him, they're not going to pitch. Because then you run the risk of him getting hurt in the game. You don't have a deal done and then let a guy pitch. It doesn't work that way.
It happened one year. they pulled a guy mid-start because he was traded. I think it was Ubaldo Jimenez got pulled mid-start.
Really?
I don't remember that.
traded.
I mean, that was years ago.
I think
Sounds-
teams have smartened up, and you don't. When,
Yeah.
I mean, when you know you're trading a guy, you don't put him out there to pitch, even the night before, and run the risk of him getting hurt and blowing up the trade.
It looks like Flaherty will be lined up to pitch that game for Detroit that day. So
they almost certainly are
Yeah.
trading. I mean, unless they go on a hot streak and then they're like right back in it, and then they don't trade anybody. I don't know. Yeah.
15-51.
That's insane that they moved the date of the trade deadline for the purpose of not having afternoon games, only to have an afternoon game. And why couldn't? Is that a doubleheader day or is it
No,
just?
it's it is
I
just.
mean, my God. I have given more praise to Rob Manfred because, as I've said before, as much as we are inclined to hate every commissioner, and I get it, like he's done good things. We don't want to acknowledge it, but the extra inning rule is great. The speed of the game thing is great. Like they've done really proactive, good things for baseball. But you're the commissioner of the sport. How do you not say to those teams, "Hey guys, heads up, your game's going to be at night that day"? It's like, well, it's a getaway day. We'd like to. Right. Your game's at night. That's it. Tell you what, you can play the game at 5 if you'd like. But you know what you're not going to do? Is play a game at 1 that could be going on at 4 o'clock. We're not doing that.
Well, the deadline this year, it's at 6 p.m.
Never mind. You can't play the game at 5 o'clock. Maybe that's why they're not, because they assume the game will be over.
Yeah, you would think the game should be over by.
But still,
a
they
1
run
o'clock
the risk
start.
of, like, if somebody makes a trade at 3 o'clock, have that image of the guy getting pulled off the field in the middle of the game. Dude, what are they doing? Like, what is going on? Play the game at night, for God's sakes. We're going to talk some football here in a few minutes. Scott Pioli is going to join us. Longtime NFL executive, now with NFL Network. He'll be in town for Ravens camp this weekend. We will preview that with him. Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, they all got together yesterday, facebook.com/PressBoxSports. You can click on the videos tab. You can also go to youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video as they did their sort of 1 week out preview of the deadline. Stan, Ross, and Luke, find it right now. Scott Pioli next, Glenn Clark Radio.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Frederick Keys Baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimeo Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. County Sports Zone is the best place for all of the updates when it comes to high school sports coverage, news, information. You would say during the year you get all the scores. Every score, everywhere throughout the state, you can find a County Sports Zone. Now, obviously, the academic year is over and won't start again for another month or so. But County Sports Zone still has great information. They're looking back on things that you might have missed from last year. They're looking ahead to the fall, previewing football. You can find it all right now. countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Mark Maskey of the Washington Post reported this morning that the NFL and NFLPA have been engaged in high-level discussions about an 18-game NFL season. We've known that this is coming. This is sort of like the worst-kept secret in sports. It's just when, where, why, how, what's the trade-off, the whole thing. What will it look like? All of that ends up being relevant in the discussion. There are a lot of opinions that are floating out there. A lot of people pointed out that I guess Joe Burrow was on Pardon My Take recently and said, well, it would have to be 2 bye weeks. There's no way we're doing 18 games without a second bye week. I think the next question is, Joe Burrow apparently suggested that the second bye week be for everyone, that you do the thing that you've been doing where, like, everybody, you have rotating bye weeks, but then you take one bye week late in the season that's for all of the teams. And you then
Burrow the president of the NFLPA now? What's going on?
No, but it was an interesting idea. He suggested that you move the Pro Bowl to that week. Like every other sport does their All-Star game
like
in season. Football is the only professional sport that does a post-season All-Star game. That then, in order to keep interest in football, maybe to grow interest in the Pro Bowl or the Pro Bowl games, whatever you want to call it, because your teams are still in it. There's still excitement for the participating players and teams, that you do it at that point of the year. My gut would tell me you also wouldn't have to excuse the teams that are in the Super Bowl because we don't know which teams would be in the Super Bowl. So all of the best players. And I still feel like my gut would tell me that at that point, like the players, the teams involved would say, yeah, no thanks. We want to try to stay fresh for the end of the year. You're telling me I can have a week off to go to the Bahamas or a week off to go to Orlando and play football. I'm going to choose going to the Bahamas and decompressing and getting away from football. Now, if the alternative is, because every team's different, some teams don't give you the whole week off. They say, hey, we're going to come practice. So if the option is you can go practice with your team for 3 days or go hang out in Florida for a week, then maybe you're more inclined to say, Orlando seems great this time of year. I don't know. My gut tells me that a lot of guys would just say, we got games that matter that are left to play. I have no interest in running around down there, getting on a plane. I'm going to prioritize the games that are left. I just feel like
it feels like the right direction, maybe, that they're
what?
Like that, like it feels like that could be the right direction. Having a
No,
universal bye week.
The universal bye week, maybe, but I don't think the Pro Bowl. I don't think guys are
okay.
going to choose to go to the Pro Bowl when they still have meaningful games to play. I think they're going to choose to say no, thank you. Appreciate the invite.
Some guys would, like younger guys, I think that want to
maybe
be a part of that.
It. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to. Joe Burrow's idea is that it's more valuable for the Pro Bowl. It's all that, and that sounds all well and good if the players show up. And I just don't know that if Joe Burrow's saying, "Well, I'll do it," well, that's a good one. Don't get me wrong, like he's prominent, but I think there will be lots and lots. He's also hurt a lot, so it's easy to say that in July. I don't know that he would be singing the same tune when he's banged up in December, and would be saying like, "Oh yeah, I really want to get on a plane today and go down to Orlando for a fake football game." Like, that sounds great. I just think it'll be very easy for veterans to say, for a lot of guys to say nah, and for teams to almost discourage players from going to the Pro Bowl. Like, dude, you can go down there, have your fun, but like, is that going to help us win a Super Bowl? Is that going to be good for us at the end of the day? I would almost say if you're going to do it, you have to do it earlier in the year, but that no interest in that. It doesn't really help in the bye weeks solution. I'm fine with there being 2 bye weeks. Like, you can do the math to rotate 2 bye weeks for every team. Like, you just got to try to keep them separated. Hey, come out and play, right? Like, you got to keep them separated. It can't be that you have a bye week in week 6 and then another bye week in week 10 and then don't have another one for the rest of the year. Like, it's got to be a rule. Like, hey, 6 weeks apart, 8 weeks apart, something like that is when you're going to get your bye weeks, and just rotate them all out. You got to figure out that math and how that's going to work. I don't. If the only trade-off that's necessary is the second bye week, it feels like this should be done. The other goofy part is the NFL always has to remember that fantasy football has been the single biggest driver of why the NFL became the most popular league in the country. And while sports betting maybe is as big, if not bigger, than fantasy football remains huge, massive. You can't have those extra bye weeks end up conflicting with fantasy football playoffs.
Hey, Scott, how you doing? Yep.
Like, if you're going to do this, you got to figure out how you're going to do it to still have everybody playing in those weeks at the end of the year. You got to make sure that happens. So we'll see. Well, run it by Scott Pioli here in a minute. But yes, the Washington Post reports high-level talks between the NFL and the NFLPA about an 18-game schedule. All right. Of course, training camp underway throughout the NFL, including here in Baltimore. And this weekend, NFL Media, training camp back together weekend, NFL Network, NFL Plus, ABC and ESPN, coverage from around the league. Our next guest is going to be in Baltimore on Saturday as part of that festivities. He is an architect of a few different football teams during his career as an executive. He's Scott Pioli, and he's with us now here on GCR, including once upon a time right here in Baltimore. Scott Pioli, it's always good to have you back. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Oh, Glenn, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was only 1 year, but I absolutely loved my year in Baltimore. It was the '96. It was the first season, man. We
Memorial Stadium
under contract still. Well, yeah, and Memorial Stadium and the old Owings Mills facility with some creaky doors and thin walls for sure.
I feel like you told me you were not on the elevator that got stuck, correct?
I was not.
Okay,
thank goodness, because I was actually on the sidelines that season. Coach Marchibroda did not wear a headset. He did not like to wear a headset. So I actually had to tag along behind Coach Marchibroda and tell him exactly what was being said by Kirk Ferentz, Marvin Lewis, and that unbelievable staff that we had back then. And sometimes Coach would just look at me and kind of tilt his head and walk away, and I'd have to keep on saying, like, Coach, they need an answer. So that was my role in '96. So thankfully, I wasn't on that elevator.
Scott, just in general, like, did you have any idea of what would you mentioned that staff, and everybody talks about the front office that you guys had as well. Clearly, did you know, like, when those years in Cleveland and then into Baltimore, did you know what was coming, what was going to happen, that this was going to become, a model franchise in the NFL?
No, first of all, I was too young to know. I didn't know very much. And when you're early in your career, you don't know what's going to create good or bad or sustainable. But here's what I did know, Glenn. There were some great people there, not just on the coaching staff. Again, I'm sure you've talked about that 96 coaching staff over and over. Those people are incredible coaches. But the people that came with us from Cleveland, and I'm talking staff-wide, trainers, Bill Tessendorf, Mark Smith, talking about all, and then again, going to the coaching staff, John Dubé, who I recently just retired from the Ravens in video. There was this group of people that came that were really, really good at their jobs. And
Kevin Byrne belongs on that list.
Kevin Byrne, absolutely. There's some just really good people, and some really good people and really talented people, unfortunately, were left behind. But, Ozzy's leadership, again, it's funny listening to revisionist history and people's recollection and memory being there. Ozzy wasn't even the general manager when we got there. He was the highest-ranking personnel executive left on the staff. There was essentially a hiring freeze because Mr. Modell, was essentially broke, and he was trying to make money. There's that famous story, I'll never forget, being in that meeting with Ozzy, Phil Savage, David, and Art Modell, where Art wanted to draft Lawrence Phillips because, as he told Ozzy in that meeting, I'll never forget, tackles don't sell tickets. We need to sell some tickets here. And thank goodness Ozzy made the decision to draft Jonathan. But watching Ozzy's leadership, even when he didn't have, he had the, I don't like the word control, but he had the authority and the autonomy to make decisions. Watching him lead and develop other leaders under him, including Eric DeCosta, who, with his hiring story, is a fascinating story. We hired him in '96. He was a high school teammate of one of my college teammates and roommates. And to watch Ozzy not only develop the team, but the staff, meaning the personnel, the entire organization. And very often people talk about talent. One of the keys to the NFL, if you're going to sustain, is not only acquiring talent, but it's developing that talent. And Ozzy and that group of people did an absolutely amazing job of it.
It's worked out okay for us here in Baltimore. That's
it has.
Scott Pioli with us here on GCR. Scott, here we are. It's weird. We almost have to fake things in order to come up with discussion points about the Ravens, because the truth is they're just really good. That's what it is. The one thing that has interested me this offseason, they did lose a lot from last year. And obviously that starts with Mike McDonald. It's 3/5 of your offensive line. Patrick Queen, Jadeveon Clowney, who was outstanding. They did lose a lot. Odell Beckham. And while they brought in Derrick Henry, they didn't really bring anything else in, right? That was basically it. They bring in Eddie Jackson this week. I keep asking if we should be more concerned about how much they lost. And every person, of your ilk says, it's the Ravens. We trust what they do. They're going to replace it. Is that too dismissive?
Well, Glenn, this is I'm grateful that you brought up this point, because I was blessed to be a part of some organizations that had some sustainability.
Yeah.
And here's what I think. Everyone focuses on, there's this recency bias of who did we acquire? Well, you look at the acquisitions, the add-ons this year, whether it's Derrick Henry and Chris Ford and Josh Jones, those names, Eddie Jackson. People are so focused on the new shiny tool, they forget that last year's draft happened, right? Sure. They forget about players like Zay Flowers is going to be a better football player than he was last year. Andrew Voorhees, who's going to be playing this year, right? 7th-round pick out of USC last year. He's, quote-unquote, a new player. He has developed within the program. Trenton Simpson out of Clemson, 3rd-round pick. He's got to step into some shoes. Here's one of the things that this program has had consistently. And, again, this is why I admire this organization so much, because there's this cohesiveness between, now it's Harbs and Eric DeCosta, but there's been this cohesiveness. They believe in player development. They bring in talent, and even if that talent is found in the 7th round, or in, maybe it's Tavius Robinson in the 4th round, they have been in the system. They're going to continue to grow. And some of the new names, well, how will we replace Jadeveon Clowney? Well, David Ajabo's coming back from that injury. He's a pretty good player. Davis Robinson's going to get more reps. Sometimes your best talent is homegrown talent. And if we look at it, I got to tell you, Glenn, you look at the years, the way that they have drafted, the way they've acquired free agents and some low-priced free agents and developed them within their system, they've done a remarkable job. And here's the other thing I know about Eric. So Eric, I hired Eric in 1996. He worked in pro personnel. That's where he cut his teeth before he got into overseeing the big picture. Eric understands and knows pro personnel very well. That's how I cut my teeth. And the cycle of player acquisition isn't just the draft in April. It's not just free agency when it starts in March and April. It's not about the sizzle. Player acquisition has a full cycle, and their roster building continues. You can find great value in the late off season and in training camp. They have had training camp acquisition. So to me, when I hear that, I hear how people said, it's just the Ravens being the Ravens. They'll be fine. No, sometimes you need to explain why, and they've done that, Glenn. I'm so excited right now. Like, talk about this is my, this is in my wheelhouse. This is so I apologize for rambling, but they're going to be all right because they have a system in place that both coaching and personnel believe in, and they're cohesive.
Scott, I appreciate it, man. And it's the thing where I struggle with it because I feel like almost, doing what we do, I have like a responsibility. It's easy for me to say. I talk for a living, obviously. To say, hey, this is a lot to replace. But what we're talking about, what you're saying is, I think, why there is such confidence. Like when I say out loud, you're overturning 3/5 of your starting offensive line, that seems like a lot. But then when I think about who that is, look, Kevin Zeitler was a slam dunk when they picked up Kevin Zeitler, right? Like that was
heck of a player.
Heck
of a player. And that's a loss.
Right. You can't. Kevin Zeitler, I feel like, didn't give up a sack like the entire time he was a Raven. Like he was just that good and that reliable. That's significant. But to the point where we say, hey, a lot of people didn't think that it made sense for them to draft Tyler Linderbaum in the first round. Like, why are you spending that high of a pick on a center? Well, We've learned why, right? Like he's
exactly.
That good. He's just that good.
Exactly.
So,
and he is. I'm telling you, Kyle. He's a terrific player, and they will develop from within. And here, I'm going to bring up a name that probably no one's talking about. That I think this, to me, explains part of what the Ravens do and can do. Right? They drafted Nick Samick from Michigan State in the 7th round this year. I watched that guy play. He's from Mentor, Ohio. I did some work with Michigan State. That guy is the absolute, complete, total profile of what the Ravens want to build. He's tough. He's aggressive. He's active. Has a really dynamic playing style, and which means he's a pretty nasty dude. 7th round pick. No one's talking about him. I believe in a couple of years, he is going to be a very important part of that offensive line. If he's not a starter, he's going to be a critical number 4 inside player that can play both guard and center. So I bring that up because the question you ask is great, and it's accurate, and it's true. Like, how are they going to do it? I think you just have to ask, okay, again, everyone wants to focus on this year's draft, this year's free agency. The rookie class from 2023 is going to be very, very critical this year. We need to pay attention to the guys that have developed within a system for a year. Don't count too much on the rookies. Think about the 2nd and 3rd year guys.
Trenton Simpson stands out significantly, obviously,
in
that group.
Heck
right?
yeah.
Like, that's a guy they're going to be counting on, and the little bit that we got to see of him at the end of the year, it looked pretty good, right? And like you said, hey, that looks like a guy that can play.
Absolutely.
Scott Pioli is with us again. Back together, training camp back together weekend is this weekend. He's going to be in Baltimore in Owings Mills, obviously, on Saturday as part of the coverage, NFL Network, NFL Plus. Scott, I wonder, they were good, obviously. They were the best team in football a year ago. Patrick Mahomes is still breathing, and you're still going to have to deal with that. And it looks like the Chiefs have a better even group of complementary players around him this year than they did a year ago. But if the Ravens are able to replicate largely how good they were a year ago, can Derrick Henry be the difference in getting over that proverbial hump and winning a Super Bowl? Can that be the missing piece for them to close the gap and get past Kansas City in the postseason?
No, Glenn. So here's, and I thought long and hard about this as I've been preparing to be in Baltimore this weekend. here's why I think he's going to help so much. I think anytime a team relies on this guy is the one missing piece, I think it's dangerous. I go back to the year before we came to Baltimore. The Browns, we were a pretty good team. We felt we had one missing piece. We have to get someone at wide receiver. We went out and signed Andre Rison, made him the highest paid wide receiver in the history of the National Football League. That didn't work out so well. So I think if you have that mentality that's one player, it's a little dangerous. But here's why I believe and love the Derrick Henry acquisition. I've been a part of organizations where our running game has had more. It always has to have more than one player. Derrick Henry is going to be more with less this year. And when I say that is when I was with the Patriots, we had Corey Dillon, right, 1,600 yards. But we also had Kevin Falk and a couple of other guys who contributed some significant yards. When I was with the Chiefs, we had Jamal, right, and we also had Thomas Jones. Picking up the slack and helping, right? When I was with the Falcons, we had Tevin Coleman, and there's always you've got to have these backs that complement one another and add to what you need. So to me, I look at the running back situation. Yes, Derrick Henry is going to be critical, but if Keaton Mitchell comes back and is close to what he was before the injury, that's going to be a terrific 1-2 punch. And then you throw Justice Hill in there, who is a bit player. But here's a guy, again, for his career, he averages, over 4.5 yards a carry his entire career. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. So to me, Derrick Henry can make a big difference because when you put Derrick Henry in there with the complementary parts of the other two backs, and oh, by the way, the best running quarterback in the entire National Football League. Oh, and by the way, you add in the fact that you have at least 2 legitimate starting tight ends, which becomes a critical part of the pass game that you can do play action off of and do things in the short and middle part of the field with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. To me, those tight ends are going to help the running game not only because of how they block, but the problems that they can create. And Todd Monken knows what the heck he's doing, oh, by the way.
Right.
So I think the Derrick Henry thing, if you just look at it in a vacuum, that's where it starts to get a little dangerous. But again, with him, less will be more. And here's the other thing. If they're getting production out of Mitchell and Hill and anybody else in the running game, and Derrick doesn't have to touch the ball a whole lot more, and it becomes December and January, and you're playing games in Baltimore where we know what the weather is, good luck, people.
You mentioned Ohio guys. Rasheen Ali, the rookie out of Marshall, certainly would maybe could find his way to be a factor in that conversation.
Exactly right.
Scott, I would say the conversations that I've had with folks throughout the organization this offseason, I've almost had this weird, I don't know that they intend to be a Derrick Henry-based offense, the way that we're so used to, obviously, the Titans be a Derrick Henry-based offense, in part because, Lamar Jackson's also still breathing, but two, because it really did feel like the sense of Derrick Henry is the guy that, let's get to the playoffs, and then, my God, what do you really want to stand in and do this against Derrick Henry for 60 minutes in the postseason? I just got the sense that,
and we've seen the weather in Baltimore, right? During the playoffs sometimes.
Oh, in the AFC Championship
game,
it was
And if they have to go out to Kansas City,
right?
You think about some of the other talent. If they have to go out to Kansas City and play, or go up to Buffalo and play, Buffalo ends up being the top team in the East. The other thing is this, and for again, because this gets me so excited. Here's the other thing about Derrick Henry. That dude is a locker room leader. He is a position room leader. He is going to be a personality and a force that the organization is going to be very proud of and that players are going to gravitate to. So the acquisition of him is not just the physical, it's the makeup. And again, I think sometimes people, when team building, they forget about the chemistry part. They forget about the importance of leadership and player development. And he comes to that program, and he is going to make people around him not only better players, but better professionals.
Scott, I know I'm going to need to let you go. I just wanted to run these by you real quick. One, what's your expectation for what the defense looks like with a young, new first-year defensive coordinator taking over for someone that had such a reputation of being so creative in the ways that he went about generating pressure?
Yeah, I think other teams are going to have to react and learn his style too, right? So you can say on one hand that, well, this is what we did before, it's not going to be the same. Well, people are going to have to be game planning against, of what Zach does. And every time, they've had, the Ravens have had turnover over the years, whether from Marvin, there's been a lot of DTs, there's been a lot of really good coordinators come through there. And that's part of it. When you're successful, you're going to have change. What they do have is a good foundation. They've got good talent. And will things be different? Heck yeah, they're going to be different. But, that's one of the things that happens across this league is, you generally, when you're a good program, you have attrition and you have a plan in place. And again, part of the Ravens culture is that they've always had a plan in place as to what they're never surprised by someone talented leaving.
And then last one for you, while you're here, what are you most interested in seeing? Like, give me the thing that the moments you're not doing hits and you can actually watch practice a little bit, what is it that you're looking for? What still interests you the most about this team going into the year?
To me, it's going to be the chemistry. I want to see how even though it's because there have been changes, and again, some of the changes that you talked about and the personality of Patrick Queen, I want to see, to me, again, everyone is going to be looking at and focusing on there's so much that's done in terms of analytics now. We forget the chemistry part, or some people forget the chemistry part. I'm going to be looking to see what the group looks like from a communication standpoint, because again, that's going to be a critical part, the ascension of their young players that are coming with Trenton Simpson. What is the communication going to be like, and how are they coming together from a chemistry standpoint? And will they be patient with one another with having a new coordinator, and will they be frustrated? Which the summer heat brings that out for sure.
Yeah, that is a great point. We haven't seen a fight yet, but we're only 2 days in, so we got lots of time.
It's early.
Of course, NFL Network, NFL Plus this weekend for training camp back together weekend. Scott's in Baltimore on Saturday. At Scott Pioli 51 on Twitter. Is there anything else we can plug for you, my friends?
No plugs. Just go out to Ravens practice and see your team and enjoy the game. This is the time you can really enjoy up close to your football team. This is a great time of year. Nothing personal for me. I appreciate it, though, Glenn, very much.
Scott, we always appreciate taking the time for us. Looking forward to seeing you out there on Saturday. Thank you so much for doing this morning.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Scott Pioli, of course, longtime NFL executive, was GM in Kansas City, was part of the original dynasty in New England, and as we talked about, he spent 1 year in Baltimore in the first year of the organization back in 1996. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning. If you haven't picked up the print issue of Press Box yet, encourage you to get out there and do it before it's gone. We're getting to that point where it's starting to be a limited amount of time that this print issue will be available. Governor Wes Moore on the cover. Stan the Fan and I had a sports conversation with the governor. This is not about politics. This is about sports, but where sports intersects his administration. So the leases and the future of horse racing and those types of topics, that's what we covered in our conversation. It's also our annual travel issue, so you're still looking for things to do with your family this summer around the state. You can find that info inside this print issue of Press Box, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of those hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box, or read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Tidbit, Tubular, and Chris Rose to wrap us up here on GCR.
Frederick Keys Baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimeo Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Hagerstown, Maryland a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8 with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCRs, continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. A quick note, apparently Rock reported this like an hour ago, and I just utterly missed it. Chase McDermott is in Miami, and at the moment is on the Orioles taxi squad. Now, you would presume, because as in the piece that he wrote, like if Chase McDermott was going to be used in a bullpen role, then there would be no reason to not just go ahead and put him in the bullpen. I guess you could see if you need somebody else tonight, like if you need to let
Cole Irvin, that's not a good thing if Cole Irvin's pitching, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of who the other guys, Birch Smith. If he's got to throw a couple of innings tonight, then you could let him do that, then put McDermott on the roster tomorrow out of the bullpen because Birch Smith isn't going to be available. But the more likely scenario would be that he's on the taxi squad because they're considering him starting. So if that's the case, then you're probably looking at, Suarez, Burns, McDermott. I guess it could be the other way around. It could be Suarez, McDermott, Burns, but I don't know why. If you were ever thinking about using Burns on normal rest, I just don't know why you'd bail on that now. Like, the idea is you want to get as many innings out of Burns as you can because you've got him for 1 year. So they didn't do the thing where they tried to get an extra start out of him before the deadline. Like, there would be no reason. If it's something that's fine, then I would think that you would want to go.
He also just had his kids, so I don't know how much that, made them.
Around the All-Star break? Well, it also might have been that they knew that he had a chance to start the All-Star game and that was something that mattered to him and he wanted to do it, so they didn't want to. I don't know all the details, and I didn't pay enough attention to that.
McDermott last pitched on Friday. Yeah, Friday. So he only threw one inning, though. He got hit pretty hard.
Oh, good. That's exactly the last.
So I guess he could use him.
But even if you wanted to keep him on turn more, even if you weren't worried, then Thursday would make a lot of sense. Also, why would you ship him to Miami if he's not going to? If you're going to do Burns and Rodriguez on Wednesday and Thursday, then why is he in Miami? Like, why wouldn't you just wait and have him join you when you got back to Baltimore this weekend? The question is, are they just doing it to see? Are they doing it to maybe showcase him before the deadline? Are they doing it because they're committed to Povich not being in the rotation moving forward? And it's such a tough thing with Povich where, like, in moments, he's looked like a guy that could help you. And then in other moments, he's walked 5 guys, and it's just been a disaster. So I don't know what Cade Povich is. I know I don't have any confidence in Cade Povich, but, you know, it's a tough spot. He wasn't... It's the I'm not even supposed to be here today kind of mentality. Cade Povich wasn't supposed to be part of this rotation this season, but he's here. He's a major league pitcher, and he hasn't been good enough. That's the reality. It's one thing if you're on a bad team that, like, you know, if you're on a bad team, you just keep throwing Cade Povich out there every 5th day and let him work through his stuff. But he's just walking too many dudes, plain and simple. Walked 5 guys against the Yankees, walked 3 guys in an inning against the Athletics and got, roughed up when he wasn't walking dudes. The 2 starts against the Rangers and the Guardians were good, right? Like, those were good starts. But those are the ones where he didn't walk anybody. First start against the Yankees, 5 walks. And I get it, he only gave up, 1 hit? But he walked 5 guys in 4 2/3 innings. And I know that my buddy Steve Johnson will say, well, against the Yankees, walks aren't the same as they are against everybody else. Is what we were talking about with Jeff Nelson earlier. You just walk Aaron Judge. You don't have to face Aaron Judge. I hear you. If that was the only game in which he was walking people, then we could have that conversation. He has had a problem with walks that goes far beyond just games where you're facing Aaron Judge. You were saying that Chase McDermott's got a walk problem too?
It's very bad.
He's got 5.3 walks per 9 innings. In 91 innings this year, 54 walks. But
doesn't seem like that's going to get
better. What's the but?
I mean, I there's nothing to levy that.
He's pitching to a 1.43 whip at AAA level. There is nothing that demands the Chase McDermott.
In his last start, where he only went 1 inning, he didn't walk anybody because he let up 4 hits and 3 runs.
It seems like he would hit his stretches in June or July where he would balance it out, 1 walk. No walks. It's back and forth.
In July,
sometimes.
It's been a lot of walks.
Yeah, it has not been good.
The other 3 starts, it was 10 walks.
May wasn't horrible.
One of them was only a third of an inning. He walked 3 guys and got 1 out.
Yeah, but before that, he went 7 innings.
Right, that's true. And only walked 3 guys.
Only 3 hits.
Measure that out, right? Somehow.
7 1/3.
That's 6 walks over 7 1/3. That math don't math either.
Less than a walking inning.
Right. When you put it that way,
exactly,
and 5 hits, so that's 11 base runners over 7 1/3.
And then he was great. He only 1 hit over 6 2/3.
Yeah, and then so he's had some good starts.
It seems like he likes to go back and
like
good start, bad start.
Yeah,
good start.
There's nothing that
actually
demands,
good start, really bad.
There's
start.
nothing that demands Chase McDermott. I get it. There's nothing that demands either one of these guys being in the rotation. And also, it's totally possible that there is something else that's going on, that he's on the taxi squad because maybe someone has a loved one who is, at risk of perishing. And, that's some of the things that we don't know. When we see someone's on the taxi squad, we immediately assume, oh, well, he's going to start. It could also be that, and you knock on every piece of wood, that someone that you're thinking about starting, you are also worried that they're about to go on the bereavement list or something like that. Or perhaps they ate some bad tuna fish or something like that, and they're a little under the weather, and so you decided that you wanted to have someone who could start on the taxi squad. We don't know any of the reasons yet. We just know that Chase McDermott is in Miami, which would make him an option to pitch at the same time where the Orioles have not announced their starters for the next 2 games. That's the list of the facts that we have. We do not know anything beyond that. We do know that it's time to get a tidbit.
I'm going to need more of a setup next time. Yeah.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, what you got for tidbits?
Bobby Witt has been he's been incredible. In fact, he's actually the MLB's new WAR leader as well, as of yesterday, or as of this morning, I guess, however you want to look at it. He has, I'm trying to remember it because Grant, I had the stat up. You're good, Grant. You're good. He 3 hits. He's had 3 hits in all 4 games out of the All-Star break, and that is, thank you, Grant.
What?
First player to record 3 hits in each of his first 4 games following the All-Star break ever. That comes from Sarah Langs.
Well, how about?
Yeah, so he'll look to keep that going, I guess, again today.
I mean, not a lot of guys record 3 hits in 4 straight games ever.
Did you see? I guess this is a twib thing, but did you see the Torey Lovello and the Royals were going at it because the Diamondbacks were down by like 7. It was not a game. The Diamondbacks were down big, and then Bobby Witt got hit late in the game and got hit by a pitch.
Needed a single for the cycle at that moment.
Oh, okay. So I understand a little bit more. And then the very next inning, Schreiber for the Royals, he came out and plunked somebody on the D-backs.
He threw at the catcher, Gabriel Moreno. Yeah. Lovello comes out, gets tossed.
It's so exhausting. Man.
It's exhausting.
I just can't, dude. I can't with all this I can't. I just can't.
You don't like the classic Royals Diamondbacks?
Play baseball.
Guy who's playing baseball very well, Dylan Cease. The 4th time this season over the weekend that he pitched 7 innings while allowing no more than 1 hit. Ties him for the most such outings in a single season. But my question for you is, can you name the guys that have had the most outings all time? 7 innings, 1 hit or less allowed. There are 4 guys that have done this double-digit times.
I mean, I'll assume, given the number of no-hitters he threw, I feel like it would be silly to not put Nolan Ryan.
There is a place.
That would be silly to not say him. He is the most. 28. In fact, he doubles up whoever's next.
Yeah, I mean, how could it possibly not be Nolan Ryan? Greg Maddux.
Greg Maddux, not in the top 4 here.
Oh, how about that? How about
Maddux? I don't know where Maddux is.
Okay.
He just let up too many hits.
Son of a bitch. How about Verlander?
Justin Verlander, number 2, tied for 2nd on the list. 15 games. So Nolan Ryan.
What am I trying to get?
4. So Nolan Ryan the most, 7
4
innings.
Total or 4 more?
4 total.
Okay, so I need 2 more.
So Nolan Ryan is 28. Verlander tied for 2nd on the list with 15 outings of 7 innings and 1 hit.
Okay. Bob Gibson.
Not Bob Gibson.
Got 1 word right.
Oh, Bob Feller.
Bob Feller. 15, tied with Justin Verlander.
How about...
And we're looking for number 4 on the list.
How about... God. How about... Roy Halladay.
Not Holliday.
How about... Sandy Koufax.
Not Sandy Koufax.
Short of a career. Never mind. That was a bad guess.
All right, we'll take that one off the record.
Take it off the record.
Yeah.
It's a bad guess. Steve Carlton.
Not Steve Carlton. He had 8.
Pretty good.
But he is top 13. Not top 4.
Jim Palmer.
No Jim Palmer.
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson is the correct answer. Number 4, 14 games of 7 innings and 1 hit for Randy Johnson.
That's the list, right? That's all right, very good.
Very well.
Very good.
Well
Look
done,
at that.
well done.
Wonderful tidbit.
Thank you.
Now we get tubular.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root,
we missed the start
and where
of
the
that.
crossroads of history,
let's try that one more
culture,
time. So
and
it's
renewal
fine.
come together.
And we want to make sure we take care of them and get the message out. It's okay, Grant. We just got to lock it up for next week. All right? So we'll try it one more time. This is what's coming up.
Hold on.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There is a...
Hi. I don't have anything here. I got nothing. We could talk about USA basketball.
Let's get tubular.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. Mass in the night for Orioles-Marlins, 6:40, Albert Suarez, and we believe Kyle Tyler, the starting pitchers there. Team USA women's basketball trying to bounce back after they got their brains beat in by the WNBA All-Stars on Saturday. They play their only other Olympic tune-up. Right now it's on Fox Sports 1 against Germany. Again, the men didn't look great yesterday, but they're 5-0. That's what it is. Basketball tournament action tonight on FS1. Baseball otherwise tonight, Masson 2, Padres Nationals 6:45, TBS Mets Yankees at 7:05, MLB Network Giants Dodgers at 10, MLB.TV, the free games Angels Mariners at 9:40, ESPN Plus Astros Athletics at 9:40, and ESPN for a new episode of The Ultimate Fighter tonight at 10, the USA Network for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports, anything in particular?
Not really. Hard Knocks, another episode of that with the Giants off season. Let's see. Hugh Jackman and Ralph Macchio will be on Fallon. And Aaron Fraser, Baltimore's own, will be on The Musical Guest on Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, okay.
Aaron Fraser, who is also like my second cousin.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he'll be on Fallon. That's all I know. I mean, I like his music. His music's good.
Is it?
Yeah. Maybe I met him when I was little. I haven't met him. It's been a long time if we have met.
Try to take a listen at some point. Somebody put me onto something this weekend that I had never heard before, and I've already forgotten what it is. Matt Mason?
He's Aaron Fraser did stuff with Duran Jones and the Indications.
Duran Jones?
Yes.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, Duran Jones is great.
Yeah.
And then also on Hulu, Dress My Tour new show.
What's his name?
Aaron Fraser. Frazer.
Is it 2 A's?
No, 1A.
1A. Aaron
Fraser. Oh, 2A Aaron. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at Fraser because I was getting ready to tell you how to spell Fraser.
Has anyone ever spelled Fraser?
Like Aaron? Like Adam Fraser, like you spell it.
F-R-A-A?
I don't like F-R-A-Z-A-R maybe?
Yeah, you're forcing it.
I think
Fraser,
yeah. You're wrong here.
F-R-A-Z-E-R.
Okay. Dress My Tour on Hulu, a new show,
song
fashion.
You recommend?
I like With You on with Duran Jones. Yeah, there it is right there. He's gonna sue us.
You're his cousin.
Yeah, right. And then on so fashion designers are competing for like $100,000 to design upcoming tours for music artists.
I don't care about this. You've lost me.
Kate Upton hosts it.
I'm a fan.
That's the only thing. That's the only other highlights.
Certainly not going to be turning it on. There's not going to happen. All right, very good. Thanks today to
Maryland's got a big matchup with a ranked Florida State team coming into town tonight. Yeah, in my in my NCAA, the college football. Yeah, yeah. So that'll be big.
Are they back in the ACC now?
They are. Yeah, that was the first thing I did. I put them back in the ACC where they belong.
Jeez. Well, the ACC is not going to exist in 2 years.
I mean, not in this world.
Well, who else went back to the ACC?
Well, Clemson's still there, obviously. And
they're not going to be there long. That's not.
We essentially just went back about 12 years to where everything when conferences made sense.
When conferences were conferences.
Yeah.
Did you make the Big East again? Did you?
Yeah, I did. I did.
East?
There's a Big East. It's fun. West Virginia, Syracuse, and UConn.
Bring it back, the old Big Eight.
Basically, I think what did I do? I made the Big 12. I think I made like 10 teams in it or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
get the numbers right for God's sakes.
Pac-12, of course, exists.
Thanks today to Bob Nightengale. Thanks also to Scott Pioli, to Jeff Nelson, and to Chris Rose, who you're about to hear from. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the...
Oh, my God. So, I know.
So good. GlennClarkRadio.com. We have really just given up, man.
Yeah.
It's the same thing every day. It's not new. You're just not nailing it. It's not an issue. You're just not doing it. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Easy Pass, Ocean City, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Cruise Maryland, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farm.
It's always a pleasure.
GamblingProblem.org, Costas Inn, the MSAA, Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Guess I didn't ask. Do we have anything tomorrow?
Stuff and things. Be a great program tomorrow.
Don't forget tonight, Reed and I, 6:30 to 9 over on 105.7 The Fan. All right. Thanks to Grant. Grant, we're going to have everything locked up for next week, right? We're going to nail it. First try every time. That's what I'm looking for. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Birds, Duke sucks. We wrap up today's show. Had an opportunity to catch up with Chris Rose right here on GCR.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be joined now on GCR by a man that you've been watching for years. Now you're watching him over on Jomboy. You see the Baseball Today logo there in the background. He is our friend, Mr. Chris Rose, and he's back with us here on GCR. Chris, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you, dude. Thank you for taking the time for me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. What's going on?
Hey, man, everything is good. I was watching Baseball Today, and you guys were talking about Tarik Skubal last week, and I'm in this really weird place where, like, there's this part of me that says, hell yeah, right? Like, it's the Skubal that we're talking about. Burns and Skubal in a rotation, get it, go win the World Series. And then you say, and if it costs you Jackson Holliday, and I say, whoa, ease up on all that. I don't know what to make of it because I have this like equal part desire to see the Orioles say, it's been 40 years since we won a World Series. Let's go. But at the same time, I don't know where the line is between going for it and recklessness. And I can't figure out what that is.
Well, but Tarik Skubal isn't a guy, he's not a rental. Tarik Skubal is a guy that you can extend and have at the top of your rotation, hopefully for the next 5 years. So the Orioles are in a very, very different position than most teams. Most teams, if they empty the cupboard, right, if they give up 2 or 3 or 4 prospects in a major deal, they're screwed for the foreseeable future. The Orioles just have a conveyor belt of guys that they keep churning out. So what they have to do, what Mike Elias has to do, is figure out which guys he can't live without. Like, that's the deal. Who are the guys that are totally untouchable?
Right.
And then I don't know if Jackson Holliday is on that list. You would presume he is because he's the top prospect in baseball now that Skeens is all the way up. But in the pecking order, our point was when we had that discussion on Baseball Today, the point is that he's not going to be Gunnar Henderson. Like, Gunnar Henderson is the guy you have to pay. And then Adley Rutschman is the guy you have to pay. And Jordan Westburg has come on and had an all-star type first half and seems to be like a dude that you can count on. And Colton Cowser is fantastic in the outfield as a young guy who doesn't even have a full season worth of at-bats yet. And Kjerstad is a guy that, holy smokes, like, what is he? So the point is that as great as Jackson Holliday seems like he might be one day, in the pecking order of the Orioles in terms of young guys' importance to the franchise moving forward, is he better suited to go get something that you do not have right now? And that is a guy that is controllable for the foreseeable future that also goes at the very top of your rotation.
So I guess, and by the way, I don't really actually disagree with anything that you said. I think the fear is with someone like Skubal, you're dealing with someone who's obviously already had Tommy John and another significant elbow injury. Should you be trading that valuable of a commodity? And whether that person is going to be the guy in Baltimore or not, that valuable of a commodity for someone with that significant of a history of elbow injuries.
But point to a pitcher that doesn't have it.
Fair.
That you're not worried about. I mean, every pitcher, first of all, bells and whistles goes off when a guy gets to 100 pitches or 160 innings thrown. Like, we don't know that those are the numbers. And all of a sudden, it's guys who are throwing hard, that are throwing with that much spin. It's virtually inevitable. It really is. I mean, and Tyler Glasnow, who's a regular contributor on our interview show, the Chris Rose Rotation, said there's not one pitcher in baseball who wouldn't do it too. Right. Who wouldn't say, hey, listen, I am going to throw as hard as I can, max effort with as much spin and try and go to driveline in the offseason and improve myself if it will guarantee me 9 figures. And Tarik Skubal is a guy who's going to get a 9-figure contract, whether that's from the Detroit Tigers, the Baltimore Orioles, or somebody else when he becomes a free agent. He is going to get it, barring a major catastrophic second injury within a very short time span, which usually doesn't happen. It's happened to Dustin May. Shohei had 2 surgeries within a 6-year span, but there aren't a ton of guys that it's happened to. So they're going to be willing to roll the dice. And I just think for a team like Baltimore, which has the ability to win it all this year, Why wouldn't you? Particularly with the fact that you don't know what's going to happen with Corbin Burnes at the end of the year.
Is it safe to say that this is not I'm looking to trade Jackson Holliday at the debt? This is a unique Tarik Skubal is the exact guy that this team needs right now.
Absolutely. There's no way I would do it for, I'm not even sure I would do it for Garrett Crochet.
Right.
Because Garrett Crochet is a guy who he's already hit his high in terms of innings thrown for any season at the professional level. Remember, until this year, he was a bullpen guy.
Right.
Skubal, he's built up. He has thrown innings. And so have at it. You get him right now to have him pitch every fifth day after Burnes to hold off the Yankees, presumably, and then go get one of those top 2 seeds and go from there. And damn, how exciting I would be if I was an Orioles fan, and in game 1 I'm throwing Corbin Burnes, and game 2 I'm throwing Tarik Skubal.
Yeah, it's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah, that's Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling type of feeling that you have if that's the top of your rotation. Chris Rose is with us here on GCR, of course, from Jomboy. Chris, everything you're feeling, I think I feel, and I think the extent is it's not just to try to win the World Series right now. It's that it also fits with the greater window that you have because, as you point out, you have Skubal for at least the 2 more seasons. I think the question is it, if that's what it takes, if you have to do Holliday for Skubal, do you need it to be Skubal? Can you build a World Series winner this year with Eric Fetty added to the rotation, with, Andrew Abbott in Cincinnati, something like that? Does it need to be Skubal? Can you do something in between these 2 things and still have a World Series caliber roster?
You can, but it's going to cost you something, right? And look, I would go out and get the best that I could. I think the Orioles are in such a unique position. They can win the World Series without making a move, but they have a way better shot of doing it if they go get somebody else, right?
Yeah, it's funny, Chris. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that they can.
I think they can.
You have 2 starting pitchers that you trust in the playoffs right now. That's extraordinary to try to win a World Series with.
I understand that. But it can be. We didn't think there was any way in the world that the Arizona Diamondbacks were going to get to the World Series last year.
That's fair.
Okay, they got Zach Gallen and they've got Merrill Kelly, but who the hell's going to throw? And then all of a sudden, Brandon Pfaadt's we're like, whoa, how did that happen? And then their bullpen became basically shut down all the way until the World Series. Weird things happen in October. And that's why, by the way, if they do pull the trigger and the Orioles are the 1 seed and they get bounced in the divisional round, because that happens an awful lot, more so in the National League in recent years than the American League. But it's so tough to make it to the World Series. You have a couple bad games and all of a sudden you're the 111 win Dodgers from 2 years ago and you're out before you know it, courtesy of the San Diego Padres. The Padres were nowhere close in ability to the Los Angeles Dodgers that year. They were just better in 4 games. And it happens. But I'm just telling you, if I'm the Orioles, and if I were an Orioles fan, I would want us to do it, even if it costs us the likes of Jackson Holliday. And, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you more than Jackson Holliday.
No doubt. Right.
So it's going to be somebody else in that group, too.
You brought up Garrett Crochet, and I'm not saying there wouldn't be some price that you'd be willing. Are you at a point where you just say that's not the right thing for a team that's trying to win a World Series this year to do?
I think it's a tough one. And Plouffe and I go back and forth on Baseball Today on this. He is much more willing to pull the trigger on Garrett Crochet than I am. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just think that you have to be so measured in his innings down the stretch to make sure that he is available. If you're a team that trades for him to make the playoffs, but if you're a team like the Dodgers, let's say, that they're going to win the NL West, nobody's going to give them a fight. So then to be the right guy to start somewhere in that rotation, because to me, they've got a ton of question marks, right? We don't know what Kershaw we're going to see for the first time on Thursday. Tyler Glass now is going to throw the most innings in his career. We don't know about if Yamamoto, he thinks he'll be back by the end of the season, but even this weekend he said something like, I'm hopeful to be back. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm coming back in early September. It was, I'm hopeful. So they have a ton of question marks. Do you want another one with a guy who was great during the first half, was freaking awesome, lights out, but I don't know what he's going to give you in September and October.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it's the wrong thing. If the Tigers say Skubal's just off the table, it's just not happening, we think we can win, is there anyone of that next group of pitchers that stands out to you and says, hey, I would do this, I would aim for this over the rest of the group?
Yeah, I mean, you had him last year after the deadline.
You can't say it. You can't say it.
That's what, right. I think he works for 28 other teams, but not the Orioles.
Yeah.
Jack Flaherty. So, and he has had a remarkable, I know that Orioles fans want to thumb their nose at it and just say, oh, that's horrible. But Jack Flaherty's had a great year. He could have made
let's talk about it for a second, Chris, because my reaction is, at this point, I have to wonder if there's something unique about the circumstances that Jack Flaherty thrown into a playoff race after everything that he went through a year ago, and that it doesn't work. And maybe I'm being too dismissive of that. I think there was a different pitch this year that somebody was trying to explain to me, but it just feels like putting him right back in the same spot. You're asking for problems to return.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that there's PTSD on both sides of that equation. That's why I said I think it works everywhere else but Baltimore. So, he does look like a totally different pitcher. I've seen probably 5 or 6 of his starts in their entirety, and he looks much more like the guy who finished top 5 in the Cy Young voting, I think, in 2019, than he has the last few years where he struggled with his health and his command. He's really, really looking sharp, and I think he'll be a difference maker down the stretch for some team, just not Baltimore.
The Orioles have also been tied to Mason Miller, who I've thought all along that Price. This is Mike Elias we're talking about. This is a group of Yale-educated people. The Pythagorean model just won't work. They won't believe in paying that type of price for a closer. But I don't know. Maybe there's a world in which the Athletics are looking around and saying, "Hey, nobody's willing to pay that insane price, so we're just going to try to get what we can get because." There's no point to letting an asset kind of expire a little bit while we're playing in a AAA stadium for the next few years. Is it worth trading a big price to try to add Mason Miller?
Well, I look at it from the A's standpoint. I think this is the year they have to trade him.
Yeah.
They have to, because his value right now will never be higher than it is. Never. I mean, all those years of control, but he's still healthy right now. You really want to roll the dice on the second half of this season, make it through spring training where he's okay, make it through the first half of next year. He's not going to perform any better than he is right now.
No way.
He's just not. And so this is the area, this is the time where you have to sell. You have to. And so you have to maximize. I think you have to go into this for the next week if you're the A's and say, he's going to be traded. And maybe it's not exactly what we're looking for, but if we get 87% of what we're looking for, we have to be willing to pull the trigger. And I understand the Orioles' trepidation in that it's not in their DNA to do so. But we did a draft trade show for Talking Baseball. There were 4 of us on it. Go look it up. It's really fun. There's 32 guys that got drafted. And I have Mason Miller. He was my first round pick. I had the back end of the snake draft. So I had picks 4 and 5, and he was in my first round. So I had him going to Baltimore. I know it's probably not going to happen, but I have him on the move.
Look, man, I am not saying that the Orioles can't win a World Series with Craig Kimbrell as their closer. I think it's possible, but I think we're all going to be very, very nervous about that. And if they can somehow avoid, it's very enticing, that possibility. It is really, really enticing.
Yeah, but think of it this way. How many you're not alone. How many teams, and I'm talking about good playoff teams right now, aren't double fastening a seatbelt during October?
Yeah, I'm staring at your hat right now. Like I can think of one. Right.
Right. I mean, but we've got plenty of other issues to make sure we get to the ninth inning with a lead in Cleveland. But so Devin Williams, assuming he comes back from this back issue, is probably one.
Sure.
The rest, the Dodgers, I don't even know who's going to be their closer when they get to the ninth inning, right? Evan Phillips couldn't get through the game last night, and he's had some bumps in the road. They do have other guys like Daniel Hudson has closed out a World Series, so that's nice for them. But, Clay Holmes made the All-Star team. There are Yankee fans who are like, well, he doesn't provide enough swing and a miss. So virtually every team has got issues. Craig Kimbrell is a borderline future Hall of Famer, and I'd be nervous as hell if I were an Orioles fan.
That's the reality.
Giving him a 3-2 lead tonight.
That's what we're dealing. He until a month ago he hadn't had a single one-run save all season. So, it's what it is. All right, Chris, what can I plug for you, brother?
Nothing. We're just, we keep doing Baseball Today. That's every day, Monday through Friday. You can join us live on our YouTube channel. Just check out what time. It fluctuates a little bit, but it's usually right around noon Eastern, sometimes 11:30 a.m. Eastern if you want to join us live. And if you just want to do it at your disposal on demand, it's our YouTube channel, JM Baseball, or wherever you download your podcast. And then the Chris Rose Rotation, that's a once-a-week interview show. Austin Hedges is out right now, super entertaining. We get different guys from around the league, plus our stable of a half dozen active major leaguers that join us. And Football Today is twice a week. I'm doing that as well with Justin Pennick and Bobby Skinner. And, football's in full swing. I imagine that's your little Ravens fans there.
Little Ravens fans. Yeah.
Cute kids.
How's it working with Deshaun Watson exactly? How's that working?
Well, the last time I saw him in a game,
that was the one.
He was pretty good in Baltimore.
That was the one. Of course, it was.
14 for 14 in the second half with a broken shoulder. It's all right.
We remember it. We remember it well. Yeah,
maybe this year in the playoffs, your offensive coordinator will decide to hand the running ball, the football to a running back.
Brother,
at some point.
Brother, if you think it's nuts, we will spend 9 months until they play another football game. It's all we can think about in this city. It's all we can think about.
Yeah, you see that big guy, number 22 in the backfield, let him run it.
It's so funny, dude. Every time somebody was talking about, hey, they're thinking about going out and getting a running back. I'm like, I don't know that spending money on a running back is what a team needs to be doing in 2024. But this team, after that, I get it. Do everything in your power to not forget that you have a running back on your roster. Do everything you can do. Chris, you're a gem of a person. Always appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us today.
My pleasure, Glenn. Take care.